Good evening, everybody, and welcome to this, the fourth day of the NA Contenders Trial September. I'm Big Hunger Phil, and with me helping to bring you all the action today is the wonderful Moxie. Moxie, hi, welcome to the broadcast. What have we got to look forward to today?
Well, thank you, Phil. And I've got to say, we've got some amazing Overwatch to look forward to. I got to see Malibu in action a couple of days ago, Phil, and this is a team that has definitely impressed me, despite not actually going for meta picks a lot of the time. They only opt into Roadhog on Junkertown. And other than that, it's just that Winston Diva dive.
Well, that speaks to me of a kind of sensible restraint. It's not immediately going in with, okay, cool, the pig is meta, we are just going to run the pig the entirety of the time. They've actually got a game plan, and we are in nice and early here on Nepal, our opening control map for this evening, and we got a couple of differences across the board here, Moxie.
Yeah, Slapton going to be coming out in the gates with Dynasty on that Reaper, so they know that Cedro likes to go onto that Winston. And they've definitely got measures in place to try and shut it down when the dive properly comes through. Right now, it's just the teams reading each other out, neither of them really wanting to go in quite yet.
Bring around the rosies here for both teams, but it's been a bit of a shooting gallery for Aspire, who has generated a little bit of this ult charge already, but nice quick capitalization on the dive. The Winston, the Diva, the go in, taking out two of Malibu, and is looking pretty good for Slepton here to get this first open.
Malibu having to play so passively because Dynasty is on that Reaper, so it's not just the Zarya bubble and Peel that you've got to worry about, it's those twin barrel shotguns, and even if they try to dive, Phil, you've got the Ilios to just speed everyone out of the fight.
Yeah, pretty good disengaged tool. Dynasty, however, more of a threat than an actual promise at this point. Struggling a little bit with ult charge, but doing a lot to control the dive as it comes through. Here's Cowman generating about 50% of his charge here before backing out. And this is good control of the choke, rather than just trying to press all the way in. Cowman takes a lot of damage and then takes himself out with his own right click here. This is a huge misstep, and it's now down to Moser to try and make up the difference with this coalescence, but he's trying to do that in over the top of the Primal Rage. We're back on with Tracky, who has a pulse bomb getting into the back, sees the support, lands the stick on the Mercy, and that's Fish Cake down. But in the meantime, Naz has managed to get the equalizer on that, and Malibu has done enough work here to secure the flip onto point. No sense contesting here for Slapton. Oh, my bad, they've actually still got this.
They know that they can filter back on Phil because look how close Carmen is to that Graviton, and if that comes out, you can couple it up with this Death Blossom. But Malibu are finally able to get the flip, and this is when the dive becomes extremely fearsome. They're not in that choke. They're not counted by a ceiling. They've got the entirety of the space to work with.
This is a little bit worrying. We have got a pause at the minute. We've not been told why that is, but it's worth bearing in mind that we're currently in a slight state of flux over here in Group B. The games from the 1st of September have been rescheduled for later, specifically because of ping issues. And I have just heard from the producer that we're getting ping issues again today. So, guys, fingers crossed that this isn't going to be a reschedule, because we are already in the lobby and raring to go.
And I mean, I'm hoping that we get to see this continue, Phil. It's not often that I get to see Reaper in 2020. And more teams are starting to gear up towards it because he is very strong at shutting down that tank lineup. Whether you run it on the Winston, whether you run it on the Roadhog, he's there to just keep them in check from walking forward.
Yeah, it's like carrying a cactus with the rest of your team, isn't it? Like, not a threat at range, but the second you get up close to that cactus, it can become a lot more painful and a lot more prickly. And of course, this cactus has the added bonus of being able to teleport behind you and popping that ultimate. So, a threat that maybe we've not had too much cause to worry about in recent metas, maybe making a bit of a resurgence here. Moxie, while we've got a little bit of downtime here waiting for our teams to get back into this, I wanted to touch a little bit on the bracket as we were such a speedy entry into the game today. This is such a confusing bracket. Like, I've worn my nails down to the quick, scratching my head trying to figure out what's going on with this one, because this at the minute could go any way at all. We've got like 3 or 4 teams tied at the top here.
Yeah, Malibu currently sitting on 2-1 alongside Noble and Infamous on that exact same score. So a lot of who is able to get into Contenders, it's going to come down to how matches fare today. And speaking of matches today, Phil, we are back in.
We're back in it, and Dynasty is able to get entry frag here, presumably hiding around the corner, able to find the target on the way in. There's the grab. Dynasty might not even need the ultimate here, but he's camping around the door. falls a little bit low on backs out for now as Carrots gets a environmental kill. See the force bomb thrown in. Won't find too much with that one, but it is causing ultimates to come out now here from Slepton, and they are starting to grind this one back. And now both of the supports from Malibu have gone offline. Pulse bomb somehow finds Cedro, sticks to the dome with a monkey bubble and takes him out. And that's going to be the flip for Slepton.
And Malibu have had enough of their backline being picked apart by Track. Off goes the Mercy, off goes the Ana. It's going to be that Lucio Moira in the place. But Phil, you've swapped onto a hero. You've reset ult charges. Moisa's already got that coalescence, but even more fearsome. Dynasty is just waiting on one of these bookcases to drop down with that death blossom.
Oh, what a move! Completely nullifies any value coming out of that death blossom. Grab and self-destruct shown in, but it's Carrots and Tracks that are coming up big in the kill feed here as Slepton look to get that one last whoop kill from Carrots, and they've got to win this one last recontest fight to secure the first tick.
Baxton is so very close to that coalescence, but Phil, you've got to keep this point contested. It's the final fight territory. Maximus is off the Diva onto the Hammond, but Malibu just don't have any staying power until the Moira arrives.
Cedro gets the tag in, but he will find his opposite number there, waiting with the Primal Rage, and Doge comes in and finds the jetpack kill. It's a 1-for-1 trade. It's a 2-for-1 trade as Maximus now back on the Wrecking Ball and starting to wreak havoc. There's the third pick from Maximus. Fishcake round one out, pick there onto Carrots, and against all odds, Maximus keeps this alive for Malibu.
83%, Phil. One fight, 83% of those Hammond mines. There is no CC, nothing to keep that hamster in check in that fight, and Dynasty straight away off the Reaper onto the Sombra, going to be looking for the hack.
The good thing here for Slepton is they do have time to build ults like Dynasty with a couple of hacks onto tanks here can generate most of that ultimate. We're going to see Nurse coming around the corner with the pulse bomb. Track saw him coming around the corner with the pulse bomb and dealt with him. We'll see Aspire prop the Great Form just to get out of the way of the minefield. Those are going to start to fade away now, allowing Slepton to get back onto the point. But the second they do, Aspire's going to be waiting here with a Death Blossom to find Carrot, secures the pick, gets out alive, dodges the hack. And it looks like Malibu might be wanting to take us all the way to 99 to 99. Aspire backs in, both getting picks here to round this out. We've got one good fight for Slepton, and they haven't got ultimates yet, Moxie.
And Malibu are going to be in the driving seat in this next fight. They've got 2 support ultimates to call in on, Phil, if Dynasty is able to hit that EMP, but the Sombra's just not having an impact right now.
Oh man, and look where Fishcake is playing. He was playing up on the high ground looking for boots as the recon test comes in. He's dropped down for now in order to get better value out of that sound barrier and keep his team alive through these final seconds of the recon test fight. Track with a desperate tag in there to keep things going, buys time for Dynasty to come in and do the same. Track down in the middle of the pulse bomb animation even, and this is all just about stopping the recon test. This fight is done, it just doesn't know it yet.
Malibu, even if that fight continued, you can hear the Death Blossom going off now. They were just so much more equipped. And Phil, look at Dynasty's ult charges, only just able to hit 80% after, 3 rounds of a fight on Sombra? And a lot of it is down to how Malibu actually orientate Maximus on that map. Every single time the hamster jumps in, N2S is right beside him on that tracer to make sure the Sombra hack just doesn't come through, and he doesn't get shut down, and the Sombra doesn't get to farm that crucial EMP. And now going forward, you see that Slepton struggle to shut him down, and you keep him on the exact same tank.
Well, I do wonder about that because I feel like a lot of what really worked there was the fact that there were so many environmental kills in the offing from Maximus coming back in on the Wrecking Ball. That's not going to be at play here in Village, so unless he wants to come back in for a hefty recon test, it's unlikely we'll see much mileage with the Wrecking Ball here. Instead, on board with Naz, who lands a cheeky rocket onto Carrots, and between him and Maximus take the support line for Malibu. Sorry, for Slepton off the table. And this is looking very, very good now for Malibu. It's kill after kill after kill, and it is all N2S in the kill feed, looking to round this out, even helpfully ducking back the point to get the cap going.
It's a lack of 2Hs right now, Phil. It's a lack of Hammond, but it's also a lack of hit scan on the side of Slepton. Dynasty's going to be going onto the Echo to try and deal with this Barra, but you don't have the Mercy, you don't have the Pocket, and N2S, because of all of that free reign, has been able to barrel his way towards 77% of a barrage, and Cameron's not even going to have his mech just yet to try and defense matrix it away.
This is going to require a pretty big level of coordination from Cow and Dynasty to try and deal with the dual threat of Fishcake and N2S, because right now N2S, what you require to get value out of the rockets is far lower than what you require from Dynasty, who falls to a nano-boosted monkey punch to the face. Seadra's going to find the double there and get most of the way towards having his primal rage ready to go. A couple of punch backs here. Those from Parrot able to take 2 offline, and a Spire falls as well. It's a very trady fight here, but I think this is really still favoring Malibu. They're in control for now, and they still got their tanks alive.
They've still got that barrage as well, and with Cowman out of that fight, no mech, no defense matrix. If things got hairy, you could have invested that. Slept on, now see the Echo isn't enough. You're going to be putting track onto that Ashe, but now you have nothing to shut Aspire down, nothing to stop this Pulse Bomb from connecting with one of your supports.
And at 66%, I was going to say this may go the way of Malibu one more time, but Track gets a nice opening frag there, dealing with Aspire. Aspire will be back pretty quickly, but speaking of people that are going to be back pretty quickly, Maximus able to take Dynasty out with the self-destruct, and N2S still holding on to the barrage here. Hasn't either had the opportunity or the space to use it just yet. Track is already finding value to swap over onto the Ashe, 47% and climbing, and there's the flip, thanks in large part to a couple of key frags from the hitscan player.
Honestly, N2S didn't even need to use the barrage, it's just the threat of it. Cowman is forced to play so passively, right with the team can't go diving the backline, because he knows that defense matrix has got to be there for when the Pharah ult comes out. And now Malibu can properly come into this. As soon as N2S gets the room, you pull that ultimate out, and Slapton can do nothing if they don't have the mech online.
They've got to be careful here, because this may just be a feint from Malibu. Tanks coming in through that right-hand side choke, buying space for N2S to find somewhere to stick this barrage, but he wasn't quick enough with it, and Track's going to take him down. Seadra with an Ana once again into the back, but finds the answering Ana here and receives the sleep, taking him out of the fight just that little bit longer. Back over with Dynasty, who did get one frag before being taken out themselves by Aspire. Malibu are back in control of the point now, and this control percentage gradually creeping closer and closer and closer to that last fight potential. Cowman, D-Mex will throw in the self-destruct to try and keep maybe 1 or 2 people off the point and maybe trigger the flip, but it's just not enough, and the kills are here in space for Malibu as they reflip the point.
The duplicate fell! The Echo uses the ult!
Man, that's really, really unfortunate. The Echo ult was probably one of their key targets to unlock this, and now there's just nobody there for Slepton. Not even going to be contested. No! A last-second tag in by Moser, but a second is all he got. We're going to see Seadra jump back in to try and control the last 2 tanks from getting into the contest. Primal Rage. We'll see the contest come through, but this is another one of those fights, Moxie, that is a zombie fight. It just doesn't know it's done yet.
If Slapton had that duplication still up in that fight, Phil, they'd have been able to draw attention away from the Lucio. Because the Soundbar for Slapton, it gets a hit, but it doesn't manage to hit the ground. The Lucio gets cancelled out of it by dropping into the spawn room at the worst possible time. And Slapton just don't have the sustain. Because they don't have the sustain, they don't have the seconds to build up to the ultimates to properly try and contest Malibu, who walk away with that first map underneath their belts.
And if you're Slepton, you're probably looking back to that first round on Nepal and Maximus's swap over onto the Wrecking Ball. There was nothing you could do when he came in. There's very little you can do to counterplay environmental kills, particularly when they come in as thick and fast as they do from a Wrecking Ball player. And if you're Slepton, you look at that going, man, if he hadn't got 2 kills on his entry on the Wrecking Ball, we probably would be going to a 3rd point on Nepal, and maybe we could have taken that one out. It's a little bit unfortunate, but unfortunately, this is what happens at the highest level of Overwatch. And I have just been informed, guys, we're going to take a short break while we try and sort out a couple of technical issues here, but please don't go too far because we're only going to be a couple of minutes.
Academy, they lay down the shatter, let the bodies hit the floor. Uprising Academy at 95%. Right now with Hydra building up to this Bear Barrage so quickly. Oh, and asking.
Double kill in the back with the pulse bomb from the high ground. Aerial assault with that line.
Impact se escucha de abajo gritar campeón a Sky Foxes.
Holy cow.
And after 42 consecutive losses, the Shanghai Dragons get their first win.
8 teams enter this weekend.
Oh no, Reinhardt, what are you doing?
We got a clip with minimal information. It's time to break it down. Speed, 25%. Go. Figure out what this man's SR is.
Keep fighting till it's for sure lost. Winnable!
Welcome back, everybody. All those issues, wrinkly or otherwise, now hopefully ironed out and back with you for the next round. Coming into our second map of today's set. And of course, the map pool is set. There's no loser pick, winner pick, etc. We're coming straight at you into Volskaya, Big Hungry Phil, and Moxie still with you. And on the back of that first round, Moxie, how are you feeling about how this is going to shake out?
I feel if Slapton are able to ease out the wrinkles in their ultimate economy, and also how they counterplay Malibu's compositions, then we are going to see the series go on far, far longer. And you know, this is something that you don't get to see every day, the defensive Hammond Roadhog defense on Volskaya. I kind of like it though. You're going to have Doge, which means Malibu's backline isn't going to be free, and so Cedro, if you stick with that Zarya, is going to constantly have to give bubbles over to the Ana rather than enabling Maximus. And that means that Cowman's hooks are going to have a lot more impact. This is all about forcing Malibu to fight on two fronts.
But it's a lot of pressure on Cowman, right? He's got to be hitting these hooks. You know, if he misses one and the target gets away and is able to get a kill on the back of that, that's possibly point A over, so he can't afford to have much less than a 100% hook accuracy here. He's already taking a lot of damage on the way in, as we will see Malibu start to make their way through the choke. N2S playing on the right-hand side there. I believe that might be a Tracer v Tracer up on the high ground. Now on board with Cedro as he makes the rotation onto the left-hand side of the point. Looks like he's just going to go and bother the point for now and draw some attention.
Maximus is on the Diva as well, remember, so you've got a little bit more survivability other than just your bubble and the Zarya. You'll have a full defense matrix, and Malibu just pressuring, trying to draw Slept on into a fight where Aspire is given the sightlines, already 67% to that ultimate, but Phil, ultimate is when Malibu are going to start pressing on the gas, especially with that nano.
That's really unfortunate. Luckily, Fishcake was there to undo some of that. There's one of those missed hooks we were talking about from Cowman, and Cedro was able to get in over the top of him and find Moza. Moza did get 84% of the way to that nano boost, but it's not been enough here. Malibu looking really well poised to take this point very, very easily, Mox.
But Slapton, because they are dying with ultimates up, Phil, will have the chance to stop the snowball potential. And you've got to stop the snowball potential, because if Malibu take this point B push and turn it into a long drawn out fight, then they are going to hit Primal Rage, hit that Diva Bomb, that Valkyrie, and have so much sustain available to them on the point. If you're Slapton, you've got to finish this fight as quickly as you possibly can. Respawn advantage be damned, you've got to put that Bob in a whole hog, something to keep Malibu away from this point.
Man, I'm looking at these ults and I'm really hoping for that glowing Piggly Wiggly of the Nano whole hog here. It's a rare combination, but I think devastating in the right place, and Slepton in a great position to find a lot of value with that one. We'll see the stick connect from the Pulse Bomb from track, but it didn't find too much by way of value. Aspire's going to throw the Bob in, and Bob, sadly, not long for this world, already out of the fight. Cedro still staging on the high ground over to the back right-hand side at the front of the point, not going in for the engage just yet. Aspire taking a little bit of burn damage there. Fishcake brings him back into the fight, but in the meantime, Maximus is down, and it's got to be the reset here from Malibu.
Can we just acknowledge the fact that Slapton won that fight only using a Pulse Bomb?
With a Pulse Bomb that didn't do much.
Yeah, but Malibu, they had ultimates. They invested heavily in that one, Phil, and they did just as little. So now if Malibu come to pressure this point, you've got the heal available in the Nano Bob. And you don't have a
That's the hook I
Nano.
was looking for. That was crazy. Baxin caught well and truly flat-footed on that.
And you can't even go in to get the rest, so you're going to be waiting even longer. There's a silver lining to this though, Phil. The longer Malibu don't go in, the closer Aspire gets to hitting that Bob. And now you can have the Nanoed Omnic versus the Nanoed Omnic, and that's something that you've got to do. Your Bob can't be shredded within seconds because you're relying on him to provide the distraction for all of Malibu to safely get from this main road onto that point.
Dynasty and Aspire here engaged in kind of a... Oh, wow, what a set of exchange of abilities. The Nano, the whole hog, and the sleep all came together there to set up and then destroy the play from Cameron. He's still alive and he's still making space, and Dynasty's Bob will find the opening, pick their taking NPS out of the fight. Now there's a Nano on the field from Cedro, and there's a sleeping Cedro. In fact, two sleeping tanks here. This is a really lazy time of day to be a tank.
Malibu holding onto those ultimates, though they've bullied Slapton out of theirs just using that Nanoed Winston film, so if this fight goes longer, it's going to go in their favor.
And this has been 2 kills onto an Ashe, immediately followed by a res. You have got to start punishing mercies in this meta. You can't let them get this free value like this. And now, Malibu looking well and truly entrenched on the point here, although Baxin being pressured out here. Almost gets taken down there by the dual tanks of Slepton, but the kills are now coming through in a meaningful way for Malibu, and this might just be where this ends.
Slepton are so close to that whole hog though, Phil. They can keep Malibu off but not if the Ana goes down first!
Baxin has been absolutely phenomenal with his sleeps. That's at least the second whole hog from Cowan that has just been slept into oblivion by Baxin.
And I have to say, Malibu's DPS are coming up huge as well. Slapton had a real chance of coming back in, even if that sleep had cancelled out the whole hog. If the Ana had survived, you would still have a whole lot of sustainability. Roadhogs are so hard to evict off a point because they've got so much healing available to them before you even have that main support there. But Malibu have consistently been hitting this backline, pressuring that Ana out. And so Slepton have been putting so many resources into keeping the backline safe that when the fight actually starts, Malibu has bullied them out of using all of this utility, all of these ultimates, while keeping a hold of their own. And looking at what they're running out on this defense, it's going to be the exact same. It's going to be an awful day to be on Slepton's supports, Phil, because you're now going to be running up against a dive with a Sombra to boot. So it doesn't matter if you come out on the Lucio, it doesn't matter if you come out on the Moira, your speed boosts, your fades, they're not going to save you if that hack comes through.
I think the other part of this composition that I like from Malibu is you get so much more value. It's greater than some of its parts when you have that Ashe with the Mercy Pocket, because that TNT is going to catch them all as they come through these choke points and enable everyone else, enable the dive to come through and actually start to find the picks. Here's N2S up front, wanted a bit of information, a bit of ult charge, got a little of both, and then had to get out again. Might see some swaps coming through here from Slepton.
They're keeping the Genji.
Interesting.
They're keeping the Genji so they know that they've got to hit the backline before Malibu can hit theirs. Because if Malibu play aggressively, that Ana is going to be undefended and ripe for the picking.
This is some old school dive coming through from Slepton now that Trax moves over onto the Tracer. I guess they're going to be looking to try and take out a backline target, maybe Baxen or Fishcake. But it's going to require a lot of coordination, and of course there is the big potential here for the counter dive. Doge takes a bit of a splashing on the way through, but with a nice bit of tracking, does a lot to try and deal with Fishcake. Drops his head to the floor to keep himself out of line of fire of headshot, and gets back into safety of the main point with the bubble, and that's going to be Slepton looking pretty good here as Cedro drops to get this early cap.
It's such an early cap, Phil. N2S just has not been able to build up to the EMP. Malibu have nothing to stop Slepton from coming in and just snowballing over it. Fishcake's even onto the Lucio to try and keep Baxen out of danger for a couple more seconds, because they know if Dynasty is given the room, if Dynasty is able to hit this Ana, then that Blaze is going to be online in seconds and you're not going to have the sleep dart to try and keep him in check.
Malibu have to come up big here with a couple of clutch cooldowns if they want to burn some time off this clock. This 5 minutes 30 seconds is a phenomenal time bank here for Slepton if they can make this happen. Trank's going for the 1v1 on the left-hand side, has to abandon that for now, with it falling down to low health. Can't quite find the melee combo, but we have got the nano boost with the Dragon Blade. We thought it was dead. We thought it was buried. It's coming back in a big way. Gets the kill onto Fishcake and the D-Mech onto Maximus. There's the first tick now captured for Slepton. Carrots has the Sandberry ready to go, but he is being bullied off the map. Cedro comes up in a massive way here, secures 2 picks for his team. Cowman 711 able to find the double, and Slepton not out of this fight just yet. Aspire comes back in with the double, and we are all out of energy and back into the pause, Moxie.
Maximus is going to be waiting. I think the longest we're going to see a baby diva try and get that mech back in, though. Phil, thankfully for Slepton, the disconnection, it's not the Lucio, it's the Genji who just used that ultimate, so you're not losing the ult charge that's going to be necessary to try and brute force your way on to this point next time around. But if you look at what Malibu are going to be running in with, Pulse Bomb, pretty soon a Diva mech, and Fishcake being 50% to that Sound Barrier, and then you've got the spawn advantage to boot, it's looking pretty nicely set for this defense, at least for a couple of fights.
Here's the thing, though. Slepton have managed to make this fairly scrappy fight. They've not managed a convincing team fight win. They've got these nearly 2 ticks on the board just by grinding it again and again and again. And if that's how they intend to take this fight, expect a lot more time burnt off this. So at the minute, we've got a just over 2-minute advantage for Slepton if they were to cap right this second. Expect that to come down significantly. And we may have a case here, Moxie, of Volskaya again and again and again and again.
And I mean, I'm not going to be surprised if we've got a case of Carrots just dropping that Sound Barrier as soon as he's back in this fight to draw Slepton out even longer. But Phil, this is the baby diva stagger. Oh, that she didn't even get off the map. Spire just clocks her in the head with the pulse pistols. And that's going to be Slepton having to wait around a little bit longer. Dynasty's onto the Reaper, N2S onto the exact same mirror. So these guys both know that tank lineup is doing the real work right now, making that backline so very hard to sustain itself.
And I feel like N2S and Dynasty have just kind of been playing this game of cat and mouse. Like every time a swap is made, there's the mirror swap made pretty soon after, just on this one map in particular. But it's going to be N2S looking to get a rotation through into the back line as we see Slepton come through. He took a lot of damage on the way in and can't stay in the fight. Cowman's down. Maximus once more coming up clutch for the team, able to find the double, buys the space for N2S to do the work, and with a nice flashy bit of tracking out from Aspire at the back end, we may see him get this final pick. No, it's the 1v1 Tracer on the far side. Who's going to win this one out? Well, looks like it's going to be a retreat here from Slepton, frankly.
Oh, there goes Track.
There we go.
Slepton invested really heavily in that fight, Phil. They used the Sign Bar to go aggressive. It has been able to build them up a Coalescence so they can go for the exact same play, but you're trying to build up two ultimates that Malibu are going to hit far, far faster. They've already got the Diva Bomb. They've still got a Sign Bar of their own, the Coalescence, everything they could possibly want to evict Slepton off this point. And so if these attackers want to properly aggress on, you've got to get an early pick first.
Looking to see them come in to point here. Moza will have the Coalescence, but takes a huge amount of pressure and has to back out here. And it's dueling Coalescences here. It's dueling Self-Destruct, and it's Maximus that comes up with the sharper of those two dueling swords. Maximus able to get two with his Self-Destruct, and Malibu with kills on the board in spades here once more, putting pay to Slepton's impression onto the points.
This next fight is all going to go horribly, Phil, if Slepton aren't able to use Cowman's defense matrix. Pulse Bomb, Death Blossom, that Diva has got to be on peel duty for that backline. If you can keep the Lucio up, you'll be able to hit the Sound Barrier, and Malibu won't have anything left once those two ultimates are exhausted. This is your best chance, but you've got to be able to eat at least one of them.
You almost want to take this aggressive fight here if you stepped on, force those out so that you know you've got an easier time the next time it comes through. You're going to see Doge coming through with the primal range here, and Dynasty gets the first pick, taking Aspire off of the field entirely. Dynasty manages to burn through the defense matrix and find the pick there onto N2S, and Slepton might have just done enough here. They've got the second pick available. Expect the... No. Oh, we will get the recontest. Just the last second. Aspire tags back in with the Tracer, but that's a very squishy target. The most you can do here is buy time for the bulkier targets to get back on. Cedro will have the primal rage. He can't jack off the point too long, otherwise he's going to give this all the way over. This is a great burn on time by Slepton, by Malibu even, but it's not going to be enough. But still, a 1 minute time bank difference between the two teams.
And it would have been even longer, Phil, that Malibu would have been able to burn off the clock, but Slepton have the target focus. As soon as they see Baxton on that Moira, she's gone, because they know Coalescence is up. Coalescence is the one thing that's going to allow Malibu to stay on the point, just as it's the one reason why Slepton are able to stick there. They've got Moza with the Moira, with the ultimate, keeping them all healthy and happy. If Malibu were able to pop a Coalescence of their own, 1 minute 28 could very easily have dwindled down and away. Now we're going to be seeing, well, what exactly Malibu are going to be coming out on the defense with. And you know, no surprise here, it's again going to be that very defensive, aggressive dive. Fishcake onto the Lucio this time, not the Mercy. N2S going to be operating a little bit further away from the backline on that Reaper, can dive in with those tanks, offer a little bit more impact, but a lot of pressure now falls onto Fishcake to keep the Ana safe. If Slepton are able to close the distance and take this fight to the homestand, Malibu are going to be very vulnerable.
And I do wonder, when you're in the defense like this, I feel like and maybe slightly off kilter pick like the Reaper could be enough to upset your opponent, but if your opponent deals with it very quickly and puts you into the 5v6, that 1 minute time bank suddenly becomes next to meaningless as we see the opponent start to rush into B. We'll see the sleep come through there onto Cowman. Not a huge amount of follow-up damage, but it does put Max in up to the 16% mark, and Track just gets completely run down by Maximus.
Dynasty, I thought was going to stick with the Sombra. I liked it. You could hack out these tanks as they come through, farm up EMP off of those two walking hitboxes, but he's actually going to opt into the Reaper to try and just force the Winston away. Moza back again onto that Moira, so you've got the fade, the survivability. But Malibu are doing a very good job at keeping Slepton from off this point.
Yeah, this is being a very, very slow push in here by Slepton. Malibu are making them work for ground. Karos is going to find the opener. The Spire goes down, and it's a 5v6 for the defense. Malibu have got to play this absolutely point-blank pixel perfect if they want to stop this point A cap. They have the option here to tag in. Whether or not they take it remains to be seen.
Nano boosted Winston, it's available, they're going to open with it, and that's already an early pick onto track.
Yeah, N2S finding the key pick there. Cedro with the jump jets, able to find carrots. We'll see a slight push back here as Dynasty is able to deal with N2S, and that takes a lot of damage off of the board. There's the rundown from Cowman. Can't quite get into this to make use of the self-destruct that they've got ready to go. And Aspire is able to take Dynasty down here. Here's another self-destruct on the field, but everybody makes themselves scarce except for Aspire, who just tags back into its line of fire. It's not over quite yet. Slepton grind this out, and they've got 30 seconds to make a crack at point B.
But Malibu will be hitting some pretty key ultimates in this next fight, though. Fish Cake so close to that Sound Barrier, Baxin so close to that Nano Boost. Yes, Carrots will have a Sound Barrier of his own, but Moser is a little bit further behind the Ana in the ult charge, and that's going to be all of the difference.
Hero pick here. Sound Barrier comes out as well as the Primal Rage. It's already a big commitment here for Malibu, but time is not on their side. They've got to start saying yes to the ultimate. Slept on able to find 2 here. It's a Hail Mary of a Death Blossom out from Dynasty. It finds nothing in kills, but it does the body damage, and you need the body damage to allow the rest of the team to swoop in and secure the picks. There's 1 tick on the table already for Slepton. There's the second tick, N2S coming back in. He's going to be desperately hunting for an ult charge to get that Death Blossom online, but it's just not going to happen for him. Cedro back in on the Wrecking Ball, finds a pretty impressive 20% ult charge just on that 1 power driver, but he's not going to be surviving for long. When you look at the way that Slepton are swarming all over this point, that's got to be it and done for Slepton.
Malibu, they can try and tag back on the point. N2S so close to that Death Blossom, but he's not going to be able to use it to defend. And Phil, I said that those support ultimates would be all of the difference, and they were. Do you know why? Moser, even though they were behind Baxin in terms of ultimate charge when they were approaching point B, hits Coalescence first. And as soon as that ultimate is colored in, it's being popped. And Baxin uses the Nano Boost, but we don't get to see any of it, because all of Malibu have just been ejected off the point by the sheer unparalleled aggression of the entirety of Slepton walking forward.
Walking forward is an underrated strategy. You'd be amazed at the difference it can make in your own ranked games. But now we're going to get at least 1 more crack at this map, and I've got to say, Moxie, so far the point A defense from both of these teams has been incredibly lackluster. Like, we need a decent point A defense some point in this map, and it's Slepton's turn to give that a go. Malibu will have a 1-minute advantage. Is that going to be enough for them?
Well, hopefully Slepton can pull off the strategy that they tried to run that first time around a little bit better. It's going to be the exact same win conditions. Cameron has got to hit the hooks to guarantee them to actually be able to keep Malibu off this point. Otherwise, you're running without that cushion for Doge, without that help to track, for absolutely no reason. And N2S has read the Roadhog out. He's already on the Reaper. Malibu don't even have to waste time for hero swaps.
And of course, when you're on the defense, that swap becomes just that little bit trickier. But Dynasty, with a bit of help of a hook and I believe a TNT, will find a pick onto Cedro. N2S is going to get tracked, and Spire is now on the hunt. Has to reload, but almost got the rundown on the Mercy. That would have been such a massive pick here, but couldn't quite connect enough shots to make it happen. Baxin's got a lot of work to do here, and not a lot of resource left to do it with. We'll see them just managing to get enough pressure here to start to move forward and pressure out Slepton as they move in and try and redefend the point. They are about to give over that first tick, Maxi.
It's a race though. Baxin's been able to hit the Coalescence first before Moses Nano. And this is all Malibu can do to try and come back in, but the hook!
Man, that was a beautiful hook, but it was even better fade. There was no guarantee that was off cooldown. Full swarm into back. It's a whiff. It dodges the cowgirl. It dodges the old lady, and they both keep themselves in this one. But it's now the Cowman show as he finds Maximus, takes him out of the mech, and Slepton. They managed to mount the defense, Moxie.
And they've got so much to deal with when Malibu come calling now. Because Cedra's going to be coming with the Hammond Mines, Maximus is going to be coming with that Diva Bomb. If you put those 2 ultimates in at the same time, Phil, when that dive comes through, you can cut off Slepton's exit with the mines to force them to take the blast of that bomb, and they're not running a shield, they're not even running a Batiste, they've got nothing to save them from the blast.
It's going to require some serious luck and some serious skill here for Malibu to crack this point open, and even then they've still got to deal with point B after all this, and it may take them all the ults in the world to make this happen. The self-destruct goes in, but it goes in after we've already lost 2 members of Malibu. This is looking disastrous now.
27 seconds left on the clock, and Slepton have everything they want to wrestle control away from Malibu when this overtime comes through. Doja's still sitting on the Hammond mines. Carmen's got the whole hog that's going to force all of Malibu away. Fishcake is going to have to be able to keep everyone alive with this sound barrier long enough for N2S to hit that Death Blossom. Otherwise, Volskaya is over.
Well, we're about to hit overtime, and this has been a beautiful spread of mines from both teams, and a nice combo with the hook there. Drags Maximus through the minefield. Cameron's going to be looking for more of the same. Screams, "Get out of my swamp!" Pops to take a breather, survives the pulse bomb, keeps himself in the fight and fighting fit. Track's able to find N2S, and it's all over except for crying. That's going to be 1 apiece after 2 rounds, Moxie.
Slept on his composition that second time. It worked. The Roadhog was hitting the hooks. The Mercy was there to keep everyone nicely damage boosted. We saw that the supports, even though they were being pressured out, they were still able to keep themselves alive. The same cannot be said for Malibu's. Baxton on that Moira was able to hit Coalescent, sure, but you were hooked out of it and you were gone within seconds. And because you invested so heavily into each of these fights, thinking if we get one pick, because our respawns are so much closer, it will have so much more impact in the fight, they put everything in as it came online. And so they didn't have really anything left to properly try and challenge this defense.
I think there's a mentality that you sometimes get to with players of, well, it's up to me now to make a hero play, so I'm going to throw in my ultimate, I'm going to find the 6k, and we're going to win the round. And we are not in that realm of Overwatch anymore. You've got to be saving these things for big team fight engagements. You cannot be making mistakes like this, because it's mistakes like these that cost you series and cost you your shot at Contenders in the next season. Speaking about shots at Contenders in the next season, we'll be seeing just whether Malibu or Slepton are likely to claim that prize after we come back from a short break. Welcome back, everybody. Here we are coming into round number 3 of at least 4. Maybe we'll go the full distance and get 5, maybe even a 6, Moxie. Stranger things have happened, but we are starting here on Hollywood.
That we are. And do you know what? I wouldn't be surprised if we saw this entire series go to that 5 mapper. I think there isn't really a lot separating these two teams. They both have a really good grasp of win conditions. They both go for that backline, and that backline is the big difference maker right now. Moser and Baxton, whoever is able to hit their ultimate first, the team walks away from the fight the victor.
And I feel like the reason that we saw this maybe not go to yet another round of Volskaya was just that Malibu made a few kind of overconfident mistakes in the last round, throwing in ults where they didn't need to be. So that might be the thing that separates these two teams. Like, if Malibu can avoid making those mistakes, and if Slepton can continue to capitalize on them, this might not go all the way in the series, and that might be what separates these guys.
Well, I thought we got to see a Sigma shield separate these guys, but Malibu will be rolling Maximus out on the Diva. So once again, you've got to contest Cowman on this Roadhog. Those hooks can be absolutely deadly if you let that Roadhog have the space to use them.
We'll see the anti-nade hit Cowman. Luckily, he didn't have much need of healing there, so we won't see the kills come through just yet. And we're seeing a couple of different angles being taken here. Seadra's going to be the tip of the spear. We're going to see a little bit of a fish there with Dynamite, thinking there might be somebody up in Cafe. And N2S with a wraparound, now playing the Tracer, has a line through onto Roadhog and onto the Wrecking Bolt. At this point, I think just trying to farm up the Pulse Bomb is what it looks like.
Trying to farm up that Nano Boost as well for Baxton. That's when the dive is going to get aggressive for them. It being 4% away, this proper dive is going to be coming through in a couple of seconds.
Well, we'll see both Nano Boosts coming out, and I believe that was maybe onto both Winstons, so we might get to see the glory of a Monkey Knight fight here, but too many kills come through too quick. N2S manages the triple, looking for the 4th. Maximus is going to rob him of that one, but that was a quick cap here from Malibu.
It's the exact same thing that we've been seeing on Volskaya. The dive comes through, the nano-boosted Winston is the threat that Slepton tried to turn and deal with, and that means N2S just gets absolute free reign on that backline, Phil, and that Tracer is absolutely terrifying. Slepton will be able to try and set themselves up on the high ground. They can't give Cedro the space to work with, especially with Aspire so close to that bomb. I wouldn't be surprised if we see him just send it in right now, but I don't think they even need it.
Aspire with an early pick, but Moses able to deal with Fish Cake here, so there's not going to be the res available for them, whereas Carrots will be able to bring Track back in. Aspire with a successful fishing attempt up onto the high ground there, a lot of damage coming in with the TNT, and this is a scrappy fight happening in about 16 different places.
That's something that Malibu was trying to make sure Slepton just don't get organized.
Oh.
They're trying to just pick this composition apart one-on-one, Phil. Force it into those stagger fights, that's when you get the most space at the moment, but Slepton are able to keep their members in check. The support's still up on the high ground, still currently untouched. That means Malibu have got to find a way to close the distance, but with 6 ultimates, that's not going to be hard.
And this is going to be an ult fiesta coming up. 11 on the board. Maximus takes a bit of a dink on the way in, falls to 60 HP. And here's where everyone's decided to mash Q all at the same time. Currently 5 on board, make that 6 as the minefield comes through. And so far it's only Ashes suffering any kind of change in state here as Dynasty is down and then back up again. Pulsebomb comes through, won't connect. There's a sleeping Wrecking Ball at the back who dies to the anti-nade. And this has just been amongst the most chaotic fights I have seen in all my years casting Overwatch.
But Malibu have kept a hold of their Bob. Slepton have kept a hold of both of their DPS ultimates and that hook as well. Cedro is down, and there goes Malibu's hopes at continuing this fight, because now Doge is left completely uncontrolled in that backline. He's hunting for the Diva. He wants to get the stagger to get her out of the mech.
He's so close!
So close.
She comes on and she walks back into a support. Man, that was so close.
So close, but you've still done your job. You've still bought a whole bunch of time, and now Dynasty can set himself up on the high ground. Provide a little bit of pressure for Malibu to really have to put a lot of resources into keeping that player safe. Not enough though. Resurrection already pulled out to let Aspire come back in early.
It's another 30 seconds where death is just that little bit more permanent in the world of Overwatch. We'll see the stick come through, lands onto Maximus, won't get the pick. We'll just do a little bit of body damage there onto the mech. Doge has the high ground here. Won't go for the power driver just yet, but still connected. You can see him just flopping around on the right-hand side of the screen there. Nice displacement with the coach gun from Dynasty. Stops the nano-boosted Winston Wilson too much to upset her position up there. Aspire finds two, but it's Dynasty with the barb on the field ready to go. Takes out Baxin. And this is again very tradey, but it's looking like we might see this start to stabilize as the tanks for Slept On are still alive here.
And they're able to get the Mercy out last as well. So Malibu going to be waiting even longer. Baxin is going onto the Zenyatta. This is very risky. This means you're going to have a lot of damage output because when that Disco Dog goes on to Slepton's heads, they're going to be taking 30% extra. So when the dive comes through, it will be deadly in the first couple of seconds. But you've got to keep your backline safe with that aggression. The second Slepton are able to challenge that backline is when Malibu is going to fall apart.
They're thinking on their feet, but I'm not sure I like the thoughts they've currently running through their head. Having said that, a couple of kills already coming the way of Malibu. Can't see a lot of Zen in the assist there, and in fact, Baxin goes down with the grapple through. Fishcake's able to bring him back in here. And Maximus doing a good job of just using that defense matrix exclusively to keep Baxin alive. Payload still creeping forward here, Moxie, but it's not as quick as Malibu would like.
Slapton have to make sure that they're constantly looking for that Zenyatta though, because again, Baxin comes up on that assist. When he's left unchecked though, he gets to reign absolutely supreme.
Card overtaken there by Maximus's mech. They've got a good point presence here, but so do Slepton. And the minefield is now in play from Doge as well. This has been a pretty good retake here from Slepton. They've stopped the cart making too much more progress. But Malibu's still not quite out of this fight just yet. Baxin's got to keep backing away around the corner to keep himself alive for the next one.
He's got to keep himself alive. 10 seconds left on the clock. The Mercy's gone. The Resurrection is not there, Phil. And you're 6% away from Transcendence. You've got to keep yourself in for this next fight.
And never get the tag in. Lands the stick onto Cowman, but it's a 2-for-1 trade. Baxin dying at 99% to the Transcendence is potentially catastrophic. But Malibu are starting to find the frags here. Seagram's got the Primal Rage, dodges the Pulse Bomb, now in a position to try and work down the spin cycle. That's Doge down. And in the final few seconds, they managed to cross the finish line.
Even though Baxin went down, Fishcake could actually swap onto the Lucio to get back into the fight faster and make sure that Malibu still had support on their side. And now they've got a Transcendence Bill and they don't need to save it for anything. Slapton have nothing beside this Valkyrie and these Hammer Mines coming up to try and keep Malibu at bay, especially with N2S swapping onto the Sombra. Doge is just not going to have a fun day.
Yeah, Valkyrie's nice, you know, if you can have an ult, why not have an ult, but you don't really want to trade a Transcendence for it if you can avoid it. So yeah, going to be holding on to that for a little bit longer here. Buys them a lot of confidence, means they can overextend, means they can push out knowing that they've got that instant instant heal potential. There's the 1-for-1 trade. Dynasty brought back in. Fishcake might still have that option, but Baxin is now down, and that's got to be an aborted push here, surely.
Well, he's actually going to get res, so Malibu still think they can win this, but Phil, they've got to bully Slapton out of a couple of these ultimates because now you're not free to use that Transcendence aggressively. You've got to save it for if that Zenyatta gets pulsed or when the Nano Boost comes through. There's an awful lot of choices for that Zen to make.
It's another get out of my swamp moment as both the minefield and the whole hog come out to attempt to stop the recon test. They may have been a little bit quick in sending these out. They probably want these for this point now where we've got overtime ready to go. Mines are still up for now, but they're very quickly going to fade in. Aspire trades Dynasty for a Bob of Aspire's own here, so it's not quite a 1-for-1 trade, particularly as Dynasty is brought back in here now. And I'm looking at ults, and Track has the potential here to come up in a big way with the Force Bomb, won't connect, and Aspire deals with Dynasty. Aspire here with a double, starting to the lifting for the team, but you've got to consider here that the respawns are going to be coming in thick and fast for the defense, and their job is going to get progressively easier as the cart gets progressively closer. There's only that one ult available, and almost all of it went into the defense matrix. Maximus with the self-destruct buys some space, forces out this Wraith form from Dynasty, who gets very heavily focused down and taken out. This is looking very much like an overtime completion. One last tag back in from Carrots, and surely that's done.
Malibu being able to push that card all the way through, and a lot of it, Phil, is off the back of that Zenyatta pick. Mercy Zen can work really well if you're the ones invading into the space. Because the second you try and take a step backwards, the second you've got to give up ground to the other side, that's when this composition falls apart, because you just don't have enough healing to keep you up. You've got, what, a dinky Orb of Harmony, and the Mercy's 55 healing per second. It doesn't matter if she's got the Valkyrie. If you're going up against Mercy Anna and Anti-Nade's online, and it hits the Zen ult, then all of your impact, all of your survivability is absolutely decimated. But when you're the attacking Zen, you force the defense to play around the fact that if they come into your line of sight, they're gonna get lumped with 30% extra damage for every single hit they take. And Slapton, in the entirety since we see Baxin swap onto that Zenyatta, was split because half of that team had to try and bully the Zen. And that means that the front line for Malibu is free to walk forward, free to pick up the space, free to make sure Slapton don't grab the high ground, that they can put N2S into places where the Sombra is going to flourish. And Malibu get the full push off the back of it.
One thing I will say, though, for Slapton is they did a fantastic job of burning time off the clock. When you look at how quick Malibu were at capping point A, and the fact that we only got to the end of the map deep into overtime, says a lot about how good Slapton were able to perform in terms of burning time off the clock, and it's going to remain to be seen whether Malibu can manage the same on their defense.
I mean, Slapton now are going to have to burn out a Sombra, because N2S is going to be looking at Cowman, looking at Doge, and seeing an awful lot of ult charge, but already splat. Beautiful play from Moser, and gone within seconds.
And Moser is so good at this, and we secure the 5v6 with the rest coming through, but there's just no time here for Malibu to recover. Slapton just steamroller their way onto the point, and we're looking at a lickety split cap here for Malibu. Sorry for Slapton.
There was just no threat to keep Slapton away. As soon as N2S goes, the threat of the hack hanging over Doge and Cowman dissipates alongside his corpse. And that means they can walk forward completely unopposed, and now you can try and contest Malibu, make sure that Aspire doesn't get to sit up safely on this bridge to farm up that last little bit of ult charge. And Doge, because he gets out alive, Phil, he's able to hit Moser's nano boost at the same time as Baxin.
I mean, I actually really love that play from the Wrecking Ball, because the tanks appear desperately want the high ground position, and you can force out the cooldowns just by rolling through them once, knocking them onto the low ground, disturbing their position, opening up the lines of fire for your own DPS to start to find value. That's going to be the Bob summarily dealt with here, and slept on retaking position on the cart. High ground is great, but they need to drop down at some point and contest this cart.
They want to, but it's going to be after N2S comes in with that Sombra with that hack, and until then, well, they're gonna be waiting around.
Well, a couple of nano boosts on the table now, out of Baxin and out of Moser, onto Cowman and onto Cedro. No picks on the back of them just yet, but certainly buys a huge amount of survivability and additional damage. Cowman's able to find a Spire here, and Doge has to take a minute in the backline to get nice and healthy. Horse Bomb comes through, but he comes right into the line of fire of the defense matrix, but with that burnt down, the whole hog can do its dirty work and get rid of Maximus Smith. And then Maximus.
Malibu are going to be able to come back in with the EMP, but Phil, they already used Maximus's nuke. It's going to be dry.
Oh, I do not like that ultimate. That needed more people there to make something happen with it, and they were all waiting up on the high ground. Really think that's a big misplay from N2S.
Especially because N2S is sticking with the Sombra, you would have been able to come back into this fight. Aspire would have had that Bob as the follow-up, that 7th full member of the team, all the numbers you need. But you've still secured the space. Slepton are pushed back because Cedro just gets all up in their face. Saxon able to safely keep them online, and even slap Doge before the Hammer can try and knock them off the high ground.
Of course, that's only a momentary lapse there for Doge. He is back up and swinging. Luckily, the coach gun there for Malibu displaces him and stops the knock-through coming through itself. Cedro looking to cause some chaos in the back. Might just be able to get the juggle set up onto the Mercy. Looking to follow up. Finds the damage. Finds the knock onto Carrots and takes them down. So no res, even less healing on the field now. And this payload getting so close to creeping in over that box and into point C for Slepton, but Malibu doing just enough here to keep it contested.
Especially because Malibu are going to be hitting this EMP, and Slepton, they have nothing to properly contest it. You've got to hope that Carrots is able to hide out, that the Valkyrie is going to be enough healing to keep this entire team standing. And Phil, Maximus is finally going to have that Diva Bomb. You can finally go for the EMP bomb combo. But Aspire is just hitting all of their heads, completely uncontested on the high ground. That's why you've got to have Doge setting the path for Slepton to move safely through. Otherwise, that Ashe completely uncontested, it's just going to wipe half of your team off the board.
Now, you cannot let Aspire keep this high ground. And whilst I like the attempt on the knock-through from Doge, there's too much here that can stop that happening and stop Aspire losing this high ground. Because right now, it's a shooting gallery for it.
Especially because look at where N2S is playing. He's on the high ground, he's waiting for that EMP, but he's also waiting to see if Doge goes for the knockdown. And he can just hack the hamster out before he's going to be able to connect with the Ashe and push him off.
There's the hook out from Cowman. It's a little more, a little less risk being taken out of that one. Will just give up the high ground here to avoid being caught up in the minefield. And Slepton go for a cheeky couple of picks there. Cowman and Track able to get one on the board. Doge with the minefield locks this up. And that is going to be where we come into point C with more than double the time bank that Malibu managed on their push through.
And that's the second time we see Malibu lose the fight, even though they're the ones who invested the most into it. EMP got put in, Phil. Maximus even tried to go for the bomb play, but because all of Slepton are just so very mobile with their composition, it doesn't catch anyone out. And now you've got to send Aspire's Bob in just by a couple of seconds, if he's even if he's even going to be able to do that, with Moses sitting in with the Ana and being able to hit all of the sleep darts that we've seen so far.
There's a good read from Doge and Cowman there. Knew that Malibu would be coming in on the high ground. Notice we've actually got swaps here. Citra now playing the Roadhog himself. The Spire kicks things off here with the Bob into the back line. And has a nice line through that choke on the left-hand side, but quite easy to dodge a lot of the value that that's going to find here. It's not doing a huge amount to buy the space that you really want from the Bob ultimate. Fishcake brings Aspire back in, and this has been a little bit of an aborted push. It's a nice pick. N2S goes down, but they lose track at the same time, and the sleeps from both of these Anas have been phenomenal.
But Carrots is able to go for the Tracer and even gets the res, and Phil, he's still alive!
Yeah, this is ridiculous. You cannot allow that level of value. Cowman takes Cedro out of the equation, and it's looking like this might be substantially more than an overtime cap, which puts Malibu very much on the back foot if this comes through. Dynasty playing away in the far corner. They can't afford to divert attention towards him. Aspire goes for the juke, but can't find it. And now, if you're Slepton, you've got 1 minute 23 seconds to cap a single, solitary, pathetic 1/3 of a tick on this opening point.
And if you're Malibu, you've got to kill the Mercy! You've got to punish that res! Track goes down in the middle of that defense, Phil. And Carrots is able to just weave their way through, you know, picks up the Tracer Corpse, reses it right back in, and then flies away. How many heroes on Malibu's side could have prevented that? N2S on the Sombra, Cedro on the Hog, the Hook, the Hack. Neither of them go for the Mercy. And Slepton, because they're able to get their numbers back in full in those seconds, don't have to go for the reset, can keep themselves on the point, and Malibu are backed into the corner where they've got to use an EMP uncomfortably, where they don't have the immediate follow-up to confirm the kills. And we're gonna be seeing Slepton in the best possible position now to try and take, well, hardly any little bit of Hollywood.
The thing is, though, Hollywood, I think, point A in particular, can be, if played right, very defensively favored. And 1 minute 23 is not the biggest time bank in the world, really. It might look like a lot, but you can get once, and that'll be it. That's you into last fight territory. So this is not done yet. This could be a draw.
Dynasty's on the Genji, Moses sticking on the Ana. They're going for the Nano Blade. With 1 minute 10 seconds, you've got plenty of time to be able to farm that. It's all going to be up to Malibu to shut Dynasty down. He's already falling low. You've got the Sombra, you've got the Roadhog, but you've got to make that kill connect.
You cannot afford for that to happen. Fishcake takes a lot of damage as they try and reposition, but Aspire will find an opening pick. Track able to bring that back out, and actually we don't see the res come through. It does. It comes through to bring Aspire back in. Cedars have to come back in on the wrecking ball to keep this going, which is suboptimal to say the absolute least. Here, the last thing you want to be doing is scrabbling to get back to the point. At the very least, he's able to dodge the hook there and keep himself in that fight that little bit longer. And we're now down into 30 seconds. Dynasty and Moza both 1/4 of the way from having this big team fight winning ult combo.
It's the race. Sombra versus Genji, Blade versus EMP. Who's going to be able to hit it first?
Can't believe Cowman missed that on such a massive target as well. Carrot is going to go down, so it's a 5v6 in the final few seconds. Cowman has to receive the nano just to keep him in this. We've got the nano whole hog here, but the hack comes through and interrupts the ultimate. Cowman and Track are able to find 2, but it's looking pretty good now for Malibu, and they manage the defense. 83 seconds of grind to take us to a draw on Hollywood.
The Sombra hits EMP first and slapped on. Dynasty, he hits the blade, but Phil, it's as the Ana dies. And he gets the nano in her dying breath, her last wishes, but he falls before he can pull the blade from its sheath, and Malibu did such a stellar job at coming back from those early picks. They abandoned the point so they can make sure that everyone's there to keep the Mercy safe, to get that res coming through. We see the defense matrix right behind her. They know as soon as they've given up the space that Slepton are going to be walking forward and trying to pressure them out, but they hold their ground, and they're able to keep the Sombra there. The Genji constantly hacked out, not able to have the impact. And Malibu are able to keep a hold of Hollywood and take us to a draw because they were able to completely deny the attacking win condition.
And I do wonder, you look back at some of these maps and you think, oh, this one decision might be what this hinged on. And I did wonder if that was what we're going to be looking at here, with Fishcake not opting to res, I believe it was Cedro that died early on that one. And actually, by holding that res back and bringing Aspire back into the fight with the additional firepower that provides, and the burst damage and the consistent damage that comes through from the TNT, that one decision might be what allowed Malibu to get that defense there. And it's coming down to margins that thin and thinner.
And honestly, there's a reason he didn't go for the res on Cedro. It's not just because the Ashe provides a lot more threat with the CC, with that burst damage potential. It's also where the players died. The Roadhog's death was a lot less defensible than where Aspire goes down. Where Aspire goes down, you've got a building to cover yourself in. You've only got to worry about them walking through a doorway. So defense matrix and the rest of the team behind you is more than enough to keep you safe. If you go for the res onto Cedro and you're not able to make it connect, your defense is gone. You're not going to be able to come back from that. So it's some really smart play from Malibu coming out, and this is something that I really love to see. The support, the call-outs, the communication, the thinking that goes in to all of these little things are one of the reasons why this meta is just an absolute joy to watch.
It's a joy to watch, but it can occasionally be a little bit chaotic as well, and we have seen certainly fights taking place in a couple of different places across the map. And as we move over into Route 66, we'll be seeing Malibu starting here on the offense, and Slepton starting with this classic high ground defense on Big O's.
It's going to be that same problem, though, that same threat of the Sombra that they're going to run into. Doge has got to have some form of cover when he goes for the dive, and Dynasty's corpse is not going to be enough to cover that.
Dynasty will get brought back in here, and 2S gets found out, but has a nice bit of a spray down there onto Doge on the wrecking ball. So at least a little bit of ult charge for that one as Cowman finds N2S. Aspire's on the hunt, flicking back and forth, looking for Sombra, looking for the Ashe, looking for anyone he can get his reticle over, and Dynasty goes down. That was big, and I don't think a res is available for Fish Cake just yet. Aspire finds Track at point blank range with the scope shot. This is massive, and it has been the Aspire show here, opening things up in a massive way for Malibu on their offense.
Aspire is definitely one of those big names that you think about when you look at this roster. This guy's got the star power, and Malibu are making sure he's supported enough to pull his weight. The Slapton to feel the full threat of an Ashe when she's controlling this space.
Well, Aspire already has the Bob ready to go, making things that a little bit harder, but Cowman comes in with an ult of his own, able to find Cedro, buys the space for Track to get res. Cowman's going to go down here, but it might be too little too late. But they still haven't dealt with Aspire, who's happy just to stand at the back of this long straight and start to rail in the damage. He's going to have to back out for now, though, because Slepton have managed to mount a defense and retake control of the cart.
They've got the Hammond points as well, so as soon as Malibu move on to that cart, they're going to be walking right into the landmines.
Cedro with the sparkly effects on the whole hogs, able to find Doge, gets the hook, interrupts to take a breather from Cowman, finds a little bit more body damage there onto Moser, casually flicks onto Track, and that is going to be us into point B.
Slapton have got to pick off N2S before this next fight begins, Phil. Because Malibu have everything they could possibly want to keep this cart moving, and now they've got all of the spacing to set themselves up for it. EMP, Bob, Bomb, all of those you can use as follow-up, and you're the ones who come in the kill feed first!
Man, even if you want to kill the kill onto Track, having the res out for the next 30 seconds is still pretty good value for something that was just, primary fire into a choke. That's a really good return on investment. We'll see the nano boost out now, and we've got N2S on the hunt. We'll get the hack onto the Wrecking Ball, and secures the spray down, deals with Doge, secures the advantage, he gets to hold onto that cereal box prize for a little bit longer, and oh my days, you cannot ignore Aspire.
Slept on. They use the nano boost to try and guarantee themselves the high ground, to try and get the Sombra out of the picture before EMP comes out, but now they don't have the nano boost to save themselves for when that exact ultimate hits them right in the face. And Aspire is completely uncontested, Phil, all the way away from that card.
Just 100% the most impactful place you can be as an Ashe at this point in the map, because nobody can afford to divert the attention towards you, and Cedro and Aspire between them just absolutely demolish Slepton.
Who do you go for if you're Slepton? Doge is on the Zarya, so you've got the Zarya bubbles, which should allow Track to move forward a lot more and contest one of Malibu's players. But who? Because Aspire, when he sets up on the high ground, is a monster in his own name. But as soon as you turn your attention away from the front line, Cedro's in your face. And Roadhog is so strong at the moment, Phil, especially when you've got a whole hog ready to just put straight into a team's middle, that you just cannot turn away and ignore him.
It's a very difficult question to answer, because you can point to Aspire and say, hey, this guy is clearly a problem. We've clearly got to do something about him. But if you divert too much attention to Aspire, then N2S is going to hack a support and take them out of the lineup, or Cedro is going to come up and get a hook on somebody instead. And I feel like the way that Slepton are playing, particularly in this map, is like they don't have a good place to, as you were saying, a good place to put all of this aggression, because every time they change their focus, there's something else to deal with. It's the classic avoided thing of you're fighting an octopus. It's got 6 arms, but it's still an octopus, and every single one of them is a problem that you have to give your entire focus to.
I mean, you're not just fighting an octopus. You're fighting an octopus with access to an
Guns.
armory. Guns, knives,
Oh
katanas.
god, it's even worse. It's the Guntopus, the worst possible outcome.
When are we gonna get that as a hero in Overwatch Pleasant, huh? But if you're Slapton, you've got to try and slow this composition down. That's what you really have to do to try and take the reins away from Malibu. Because every single fight we've seen since Point B unlocked, it's just been the attackers dictating the pace, dictating where it happens. And when you're running up against Sombra, that can be extremely difficult to do, but if you're slapped on, you've just got to take the ground with force. And that means aggressive dive. Dynasty going onto the Genji, Doge swapping onto the Winston. You go for the backline, you go for where it hurts. So Aspire doesn't have that level of sustain, that amount of lifelines we've seen the guy get every single one of these fights.
So this is a really difficult point where you've got to reset your ult economy. I understand going for the dive here, but you've got to find a way to deal damage incredibly quickly here. Otherwise, you're just going to get overwhelmed by ultimate. Aspire's already found a pick here. Dynasty's managed 40% of the ult charge, which is pretty good going as a rate of ult charge here, but the payload hasn't really been stopped properly yet, and you haven't found the kills to really turn this team fight around just yet. We'll see the Pulse Bomb come online for Track here, but Cedro and Aspire between them, with a little bit of help from our friend Bob, are starting to find the picks. And we've already seen the nano boost committed by Moses. That combo isn't there, Moxie.
It's gonna be dry, and you've got nothing really to try and force the Genji into that kill feed. Especially if you're Malibu, you've got the Diva Bomb to try it out as soon as he goes for the ultimate.
You've got to hand it there to Doge. That was a nice bit of a dodge there to get out of the way of the Pulse Bomb. We'll finally see the blade come through. It's a little bit dulled without the additional impact of that nano boost, but it will help secure 2 picks. Maximus doing the cleanup duty with the constant fire of the Diva rockets. Cedro is going to go down to Dynasty, and at the final 2.05 meters, Slepton have managed to mount a defense.
The blade was enough. It didn't need the nano, it just needed to hit both of those supports. Because look how quiet Aspire is in that last fight when the Mercy and Ana are both gone. And so if Slepton can continue to hit this backline, then they're going to be able to continue to hold these attackers at bay. However, you can now see Aspire is situated on the high ledge. Fishcake is right there beside him once again. He's going to be going in with the Triumph to keep you up, but first Moses Nano Boost has got to be able to secure that space.
Nano Boost comes through and it will hit Doge. In the meantime, Track is away in the back and on the hunt, looking for somewhere to stick these pulse pistols. In the meantime, though, Andrew is able to find Dynasty, and Cowman is able to retake possession of the cart, but Aspire has the bob, sends it away into the back. Gives Slepton one more angle to think of. TNT in over the top, and Moser forced into the line of fire of the bomb and summarily dealt with. Aspire is still busy causing trouble on the top rope. Track's going to go down here as well. Looking now very, very good here for Malibu to finally secure this cap. We've got another blade online. But the one thing we didn't have to accompany that blade, Moxie, was HP for the Genji that dragged it out. Res comes through onto Maximus, and now we've got the player advantage in favor of Malibu. Self-destruct in over the top, won't find anything, and that's a 1 minute, 3 second time bank as we finish Route 66.
And in that last fight, Aspire, who opened it by throwing a bomb in, Phil, hit 82% to the next ultimate.
Wow.
This guy is absolutely on fire right now, and because Malibu set him up on the top of the truck, he's not quite away from the fight, but he's separated from the focus of Slepton. Because Doge comes back on the Reinhardt, which means you've got cleave, you've got a shield, you don't have range, you don't have that mobility. You don't have your jump pack to try and connect with the Ashe to try and spook Aspire from where he's standing. And the Ashe uncontested just gets to free fire. And we know how deadly Aspire can be when he's being bullied by Track on the Tracer, by Dynasty on the Genji, by Doge on the Winston. We just got to see the guy in action when there's nothing looking at him.
I do feel a little bit like the Ashe Uncontested sounds like a really bad romance novel. Is that just me?
No, I can see it. I can see it.
Not a lot of change here for Malibu. They're still putting a lot of eggs in that Aspire and Fishcake-shaped basket, but a difference in attack here from Slepton if this is what comes out of sport.
Dynasty going to be going for that Reaper. So you can go for the teleport, you can try and accompany your tanks. I would much rather though see some form of hit scan to try and openly contest the Spire, especially with the Ashe defensively set up. You've already got the high ground. It's the dive that's got to aggress in, and before you can even get close, you're taking so much poke damage. Frags already falling extremely low.
Yeah, not great position here to try and rely on that mega health pack to stay in this fight, but very close to seeing a rundown come through and Cedro just get demolished. And now we see where the dive focused around the slow progression of the Reaper can really start to pay dividends, because he did a lot there to work Cedro down. Aspire is able to find the equalizer here, and Track takes a huge amount of damage, can't quite call out the recall, and will be taken out of the fight for now.
Carrots is gone, they don't have that disengage tool, and they don't have the speed boost to try and get themselves back in. Lucio still manages to get himself back in the fight while it's still going though, and now Moza can use that coalescence, allow the stars to get even more aggressive, but do you want to do that when your off-tank's already gone?
And finally we see the disengage here from Slepton, but it took them a very, very long time, and Carrots didn't quite manage it. In fact, people from Slepton are still going into this fight, and I just don't understand why, Moxie. They are already 3 players down.
It was the rubber band. They knew that they had to sort of aggress in to try and save Carrots, but sometimes you've just got to let that Lucio be the sacrificial lamb. The good news is they kept a hold of Coalescence. That was the one thing that they could have popped aggressively to force Malibu to take a big step back, but they know because Malibu have been dictating how this fight goes, they're the ones getting the most poke damage in, they're the ones with the most ultimates available, and so Coalescence has got to be there for the dive to fall back on.
Between Carrots and Sacrificial Lambs, you're describing quite the Sunday roast here for us. Cameron's able to find backs in. Pulse Bomb goes in from N to S, and he's looking to get the work over onto Doge. Will find it as Doge falls, and it's another solid defense here for Malibu.
Malibu have got this dive down pat. Slepton are trying to use the Lucio to go as aggressive as we see NA teams go, Phil. You kickstart things up, you try and deny Malibu the time, the space to set Aspire up, and in that panic state, you pick one person off, you separate them from the pack, and then you pounce. But Malibu, every time they see this dive coming through, they just disengage, they take a step backwards, and once that speed boost is gone, so too is Slepton's presence.
We'll see them coming into this fight with ultimates now for Slepton, but probably not the key one they really want. They really want this EMP to really crack things wide open. They don't have it just yet. Stego's going to have the minefield ready to go, which can do a lot here to stop the payload right at the back end of the fight. But between the Pulse Bomb and the Self-Destruct and the follow-up damage from Track, Slepton might finally have a dog in this race.
Slepton are able to catch the disengage. They read their opponents perfectly. They cut off the support's exit, Phil. Fool me once! Shame on you. Fool me twice. You're gonna be going back to the spawn room the hard way. And now we can see Slepton trying to move in aggressively, trying to stop once again Malibu's setup. Because that is when this composition is at its most frightening. As soon as Aspire is given the sight lines and the time to line the shots up, he's devastating. But if you deny him from even walking out of that tunnel with Doja's Primal Rage, he's an absolute teddy bear.
On board with Dynasty, wondering where he's going to be going for with this hack. Kind of difficult to find a worthwhile target, so you're likely to get the kill here, but with a bit of help from Doge, actually secures the kill, runs down Aspire, and is closing in on this EMP. Will get the pick there onto Fishcake, and suddenly things are looking a lot better now for Slepton. Hack comes through, prevents the power driver, and now there's no need to use the EMP.
I love how Dynasty is playing. Every time they see Aspire go down and Fishcake's still alive, the Sombra guards the body and even tries to go for the hack onto the Mercy. A little bit of a warning to make sure that Fishcake doesn't think about getting that DPS back in, and now you've still got the EMP. Now you can cancel out Malibu's win condition, that Bob opening up the space for them to get out of the tunnel.
That was a Pulse Bomb crammed right into that crowded choke, only found backs in, but Cedro is collateral damage here, and Moza threw almost all of that coalescence into the choke as well. You're quite right, just see the Bob away in the back, far too far to really be doing anything effective, and that's the meter down. We're into point C for Slepton.
Again, Dynasty playing that Sombra pixel perfectly. sees the Bob, trots out the EMP, knows Malibu are going to be trying to walk forward off of the attention taking it away from them. N2S is even going to go onto the Torbjorn. This is the old school Sombra counter that we're seeing now. The turret is there to deter her from getting into the backline, and you can pull double duty. Track on that Trace is going to have the exact same problem, but if you lose the fight, if you lose the spacing for the turret to be set up, though, you lose all its impact.
Been a long time since I've seen a Torb actually pulled out in earnest in a match like this, so let's see if N2S can find some value. Self-destruct gets swooped in along the low ground and will find N2S, so the value coming out from the Torbjorn probably not quite that much, as he will be in spawn for the next few seconds. Kills very much heavily in favour here of Slepton. Aspire will get Carrots out of the fight and buys the space of Fishcake to bring Seago back in. Aspire once more uncontested, able to find Track. And that's going to be another defense hit. We see Maximus lose the mech, but it should be enough for now.
But that was much more of an eco push for Slepton. Remember, they just used the EMP in the last fight to shut down Malibu, and Dynasty, even with N2S now on the Torbjorn, which should be countering your impact, 76% to the EMP, and because you've got the Torbjorn, you've got less chance to bully Track on this Widowmaker now. There's nothing to stop the DPS from going ham.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of this swap, actually. I think there's a lot this Widowmaker can get done. N2S is already down, and you're seeing the turret there. N2S might be down, but his turret's still up, and it forced Dynasty out whilst he was looking for a position to throw in the EMP.
Carrots is gone, though. You don't want to EMP when you don't have the sound barrier to cushion all of your follow-up.
Self-destruct. Blocks at the choke on the right-hand side, but it won't stop the tanks coming through. Hack lands on 3. We'll secure the D-Mech onto Maximus, who did have the self-destruct ready, but it won't stop Torb from delivering his Molten Core all over the point. Makes it just that much harder to contest going, and we're now about to hit even Stevens on time bank here on Route 66, but it's Track in the back with headshot after headshot after headshot that is dealing here with Malibu. Maximus makes the punch back with self-destruct, but it's just not enough, and now it's 1 minute versus 1 minute and 12 on our next round through Route 66.
It's so close between both of these teams. And both of these teams have a real grasp of how to play that last fight, Phil. Track going onto the Widowmaker completely ignored, harkens back to Aspire completely ignored on that truck, just getting to come up in the kill feed, getting to chip away at these health bars, completely unnoticed. And you know what? I'm not going to be surprised if we see that cart move far further than you would think 1 minute would allow in Route 66. I think both of these guys have got some real potential to have very long overtime pushes, especially if you find yourself staggered out or caught in the threat of the EMP that Dynasty is going to be holding over this team's head.
But I still don't think that Slepton have the right answer for Aspire. And you saw how much time was burnt off the clock just by virtue of how well Malibu were playing this top position on top of Big Earls.
Well, what do you think about this then?
Well, I mean, look, I just looked down at my notes and I looked back up and I saw that Track was on the Widowmaker, and I think that might be the way that you play this.
Honestly, it's got legs to it. Malibu are running out with Diva Roadhog, so you do have the defense matrix, you will have the boosters to try and close the distance, but you don't have that second tank to dive with to take attention away from you, and Track is going to have such a support network to fall behind. The Anna, the Mercy, both of these guys are going to be keeping that Widowmaker up and alive if anyone tries to get to that back line.
The thing is, Track doesn't even need to get picks here. He's just making it... Well, okay, he can get picks, that's fine. But, like, your role here is just make it very hard for Aspire to do anything. But Track is already doing so much damage here that he's about to get this Inquis Light online. Which is
acts like a first tank. Look how much he's controlling Malibu. Malibu can't go for this straight-out slugfest in the middle of the road or even try and take themselves up onto the high ground. And it's reflecting in that ult pass build. Maximus hasn't been able to blow the past 30%.
Yeah, it's... Wow, N2S is able to find Carrots, and Aspire then gets Carrots as well. And in the blink of an eye, the fight turns. And almost as if conducted by a conductor's baton, Malibu just collapsed in on Slepton, and stop it with no hope of a recontest.
You're running the Reinhardt, and that forces your hand on how that fight's going to go down, Phil. The second that it starts getting a little bit closer, you've got to try and drop your shield and go for those hammer slings, and that means Cowman on that Roadhog is so very exposed, and everyone else alongside him. And Malibu, they play it perfectly. They bait Slepton into a space and then box them in on all sides. The Tracer plays flank and shepherds them right into danger, and it means that Carrots on that Mercy has nowhere to fly. And suddenly your backline is gone, your tank line is gone, and Track on that Widowmaker isn't able to grapple out of danger to save himself either. But you're still going to be facing that exact threat in a couple of seconds. And now Track is going to have the high ground. Difference here, Phil, is that death for this team is going to be permanent. They're not running the Mercy. They're not running the damage boost, no res available. Instead, what they're going to try and do is take this fight as close as they possibly can, with the mate acting as a sort of second shield, and the ability to get this team safely out if things take a turn for the worse. Not only do you have Carrots there with the speed boost, you can also wall your team to make sure Malibu can't follow you.
I do like this from N2S. He just picks up the Hanzo to throw in the Sonic Arrow, scouts out where Slepton are held, and gives them all the information they need to get in. I'm not quite sure I like the swap here onto the Echo. I think it makes it very vulnerable to Track. And it's been a slow push so far. Like, they're only just starting to get to the cart. So this position from Slepton in terms of just burning time off the clock has been great. And N2S puts himself into the line of fire of Track. And Track gets the double here. This is disastrous for Malibu. They've got to make swaps, and they've got to make them now.
Completely uncontested. N2S is going to go into the Sombra just to try and worm his way past this frontline fight so he can try and bully Tracks out of his positioning. Because otherwise this Widowmaker just gets to decide every single one of these. He's gone!
Man, that is absolutely fantastic, and Aspire gets the run over on Moza as well. Dynasty is so close to having this Blizzard online, just tags back into the Ice Block to stop the hack coming through. Hasn't done enough healing to get it online just yet. And it's not going to matter because the kills are here in such numbers for Malibu.
One last fight though. Slepton have one last fight. And a lot of it is going to come down to Maximus. Dynasty's going to have that Blizzard fill. And if that comes through, Malibu don't have the Science Barrier, don't have the Coalescence. They'll be evicted in overtime off this payload, especially with Doge being so close to that Shadow and Cowman so close to that Diva Bomb.
We're in overtime though, anything could happen here. Track's already managed 30% of his ult, having just swapped over onto the Pharah. It's doing a lot of body damage. Dynasty now looking to try and track through. The Shatter comes through. The bomb comes in over the top. The Blizzard looking to seal things off here. And it was looking so good for Malibu. But Slepton, they read that like a book. They came out with an war composition and they made it work, and they're going to take the lead in the series, Moxie.
I love the changes that they come in with. They put Track onto the Pharah knowing that Malibu don't have the hit scan. And if the Diva tries to go for the Pharah, then that means the Mei is free to put the Blizzard in. And even then, they pull the Shatter out, they pull the Bomb out, and only after that do they drop the Blizzard. They know how much value to put into that ultimate, that it's the one thing that pretty much guarantees Malibu stepping off the point as long as it connects with the ground.
I'd say
and I told you, like, this is a team that is extremely strong. We talked about it before this match. This is probably the hardest match in the bracket, Malibu being joint first spot. Slepton are definitely proving themselves.
One thing that is worth noting about Slepton is they are one of these teams that still has an additional game to play. There's a very real world where if Slepton were able to play their 1st of September game, they'd also be on that 2-1 scoreline, and it would show you just how close this match is due to be. But we do have at least one, maybe two more maps coming your way very shortly, guys. We're going to throw to a quick break, and then we'll be right back at you with all the action. Welcome back, everybody. Here we go into what I think is our fifth game of fifth game. We have a draw, and you know, it's been a long day for me. I cast EU before I cast this, so if I occasionally seem a little bit out of it, it's that, and I'm very old. Anyway, coming into Ilios, slept on at match point. They've got to win this round, and that's going to be them taking the win in the series and walking away with that 3-1 scoreline.
But Malibu can still very much come back from this, Phil. We know how strong this team is when it comes to that DPS lineup, and headed into Ilios, you've got high ground, you've got clear sight lines, and if track runs out on that Farah again, Aspire has all of the space he can want to shut him right down.
Sorry, I realize I've got this big stupid grin on my face. It's because one of the players, Doge, has asked me to add him on Snapchat, and I've just told him I'm too much of a boomer to have Snapchat, and there's a little bit of back and forth in chat before we come into the game. Anyway, where were we, Moxie?
Ashes versus Farahs. And we're going to be headed over to Lighthouse first of all. And do you know, I like this. I like that Slept On think that Malibu are once again going to be running this very aggressive dive. It's something that Malibu have done every single control point that they've played where they haven't had that Zarya, where they haven't had that Roadhog. Instead, they've opted for that Diva, that Winston, and if Dynasty is able to get up close with those shotguns, those two are going to be made absolutely obsolete.
Yeah, but of course, trying to close the distance with Aspire, who has been incredibly hot on the Ash here today, may prove a little bit of a problem for Dynasty, so he's got to choose his targets carefully. And Aspire, also in the middle of choosing their targets carefully, will deal with track. It forces a rotation now out from Slept On, and Dynasty gets caught out in the middle of no man's land as Moza goes down as well. No chase coming out here from Malibu just yet, as they want to secure this point and take a bit of defensive position.
You would think maybe someone would be swapping onto an Ashe to try and rival Aspire right now. Because now that Malibu have control of this point, they can set Aspire as far away from this fight as they possibly want. And that means that Slept-On are going to have to invest so heavily if they want this first dive to be successful. And already you're being poked down, you're being found out, you're having to send track onto that point to try and draw attention away from the rest of the team, but Dynasty still falls!
Man, I really don't like this Reaper pick here. It's going to fall time after time, just the range and the speed that Malibu have on their side. Doge is able to find Cedro, but they're still not in this fight in significant enough a way for that to really make anything. Like how is able to find a fish cake? Aspire has to drop to the low ground here. Doesn't yet have the bulb to secure that additional player advantage, and Slept On have done a fantastic job here of coming in and just picking apart Malibu's defense.
And now they will have, well, control of the point now. And so if things start turning south, you've got a dive composition that can very quickly get back onto that point. Phil, you can draw this out for as long as you possibly can. Longer if you're able to hit that pulse bomb, but it is not to be, and it's going to fall to Carrots to keep himself safe, to hit the Sound Viper when Malibu want to aggressively contest this, because they are going to be coming in with so many ultimates, and Dynasty is just not going to be able to match them. The Reaper's threat has been absolutely non-existent. Right now he doesn't have the Death Blossom.
Yeah, it's a really good sign. It's just how unfortunate this Reaper pick has been, that he's a long way from the ultimate being online. Doge able to find Aspire, and it's trade after trade after trade here. N2S still holding on to Pulse Bomb. No real need to use that just yet. Looks to try and get the work down on Dynasty, but he manages that Shadow Step up into safety. But where's he going here? Like, what can you do up on the high ground when you haven't even got your Death Blossom ready to proc?
You can contest though for a little bit longer, and Doge is going to be doing just that with the Primal Rage as well. Flip still has, well, Flip has come through for Malibu, so Slept-On have got to be able to win this fight or get out fast.
Dynasty finally with a kill to his name, taking the Spire's Bob out of the picture, and there is the reflip. Slept-On now taking control of the point once more, and Dynasty getting in position to go for a sneaky bit of a Death Blossom that gets found out and has to retreat.
Maximus's mech has gone though, so Malibu have got to go the exact same exit, wait for the Diva to come back in. It's going to be something that they're relying on to shut this Death Blossom down. Baxon will be there with the Ana, with the Sleep Dart, but besides from those two tools, you've got nothing to try and shut this DPS down.
Still plenty of time on the clock for both teams here. They can wait this out and wait until they've got the right ultimate combos. Cowman's gonna go down. We're back on board with Track. Will throw the pulse bomb. Found a spy, but a spy rezzed back in, and Dynasty desperately looking for the work down on Fishcake will take him out of the fight, and is back into numbers advantage here for Slepton. Carrot with the multiple shot there from the sound gun to deal with his opposite number, and we're at 83 to 77, and Doja's still kind of in this fight. Track desperately looking for that repeat, getting the rewind back onto the high ground, but can't find it. Cowman getting juggled, and now Doge in a position to do some juggling of his own, batting around that enemy Winston, takes him over the rooftop, chases him down, finds the mid-air kill with Fire Monkey Arms. It's 99 to 77, and Doge floating up on the high ground, looking to get that contest coming back on in. Baxter's going to find Dynasty here, but it looks like this might be too little too late for Malibu as the kills start to come through for Slepton.
Both the supports are gone. It's going to be up to Maximus with the Diva Bomb to find anything, but all of Slepton are just able to hide themselves behind that natural cover, and Phil, Secret's going to have to pull off a miracle if he wants this team to be able to come back, and it's just not to be. And one thing that Dynasty had going for him on that Reaper, it wasn't the ultimate, it was the sustain. If the dive tried to come for him, he could either teleport or Wraithform away, or just deter them with the sheer amount of damage he does up close. Malibu had to be a lot more careful about where they positioned their DPS, had to be a lot closer. Because once that dive comes through and Aspire's exhausted that coach gun, the Ashe is just a fish out of water. And so I wouldn't be surprised if Slepton continue to run with this pick of the Reaper. It's not the damage, it's the fact that you get to stay alive far longer than the other side and force them to play a game that Malibu really don't want to be playing.
This is now potentially right at the pointiest possible edge of match point for Slepton. They've got to win this one round, and that's it. They take this series. They're sticking more or less with what we saw them run the last time. Dynasty coming in on the Reaper, but a couple of changes coming through from Malibu. N2S in a good position up on the sky, not going to be contested on the Farah, but one pick has already come through, and it's Carrots caught out of position and down. Allows Malibu to start to take a little bit more of a sensible approach onto the point and start to deal in some additional damage, take advantage of that one-man advantage. N2S struggling to land the rocket here onto Track, but still generating ult charge, and Carrots is back, and he's exacting revenge, and Slepton managed the first flip.
Malibu should not have given that one up, though. They were the ones to come in with the kill feed, but they weren't the ones to control that burst percentage, and now you're in the dangerous position where you've got to finish this fight fast or get out just as quickly, otherwise Slepton are just going to be milking all of the point percentage.
I love the threat that N2S provides here. All he's going to do is spam rockets at a choke, and it means that the entirety of Slepton can't afford to press out because they've got to assume he's got the barrage more or less online and ready to go. We do see a 1-for-1 trade come through here, and Malibu are starting to turn things back in their direction. Carrots able to find another one. N2S gets the double with the barrage, lives through it with the help of the nano boost, and secures the flip for the team.
This is going to be a lot harder now to walk into if you're Slepton, because N2S just gets to sit up on this high ground and poke away at you from afar, and if Slepton continue to run without a Diva, without hit scans, they're just not going to be able to contest, but Dynasty is going to be doing just that, already onto the McCree, trying to keep N2S impact to a minimum. Still got to worry though, you've got to hit both of those shots so quickly with Fishcake being right there to keep this Farah healthy.
It's so hard to push into a Farah like this because everywhere you go, all she's got to do is reposition slightly to have a line through onto you. Nice eat from Maximus. Gets rid of Track's force bomb, but it was a little bit too late to save Secret. Secret is now back in, but Aspire down. Cowman's going to have the Graviton Surge ready to go here, and may have been slightly stymied in his efforts there to deal with Baxin by Doge batting him out of the line of fire. Dynasty takes a couple of shots there at the mech. I'm afraid my friend cannot kill the mechs for high noon. And a nice dodge there by N2S, but it doesn't save Fishcake, and Doge is able to get the land onto N2S and take them out of the fight. We're looking good for another flip here for Slepton.
Cowman's going to have the Graviton as well. He went down in that fight, silver lining for Slepton. It means he wasn't able to pull the trigger and use it. And so they've still got that to keep Malibu at bay with the support lineup that this other side is running. They don't have the Lucio, they don't have the speed boost. The only way that they can survive this Graviton if it catches the members out is if Maximus is able to connect it with the defense matrix, or N2S goes for that defensive barrage. That's going to be so very difficult to do with Slapton on playing extremely mobile heroes.
Having said that, N2S did manage quite a lot of value with that last barrage, and that coupled with the nano boost, the old avoided special, is a really, really powerful tool here. Out comes the Graviton Surge, the Pulse Bomb in over the top. N2S finds one with the barrage, takes Doge out, but that was a lot of resources thrown at Doge in this fight, and that's the only pick they get out of it. Doge is now going to be coming back into the wrecking ball to keep this contest going, and Cowman manages the triple. Dynasty's still alive, will have the high noon shortly, and can't quite land those last few shots onto the Mercy.
He's got the Deadeye though, and he's going to be able to pop it to keep that point still firmly under Slapton's control, and the Pharmacy's gone, Phil! Malibu has just...
Single polygon above the parapet, and poor N2S is putting the dirt. It's overtime. It's 99-71. Slepton just have to round this out, and that is it. They've done it. It was a hard-fought series. Malibu fighting back valiantly, but Slepton managed the win.
They just counterplayed Malibu. Every single time Malibu puts a win condition on the board, Slapton find a way around it. When they try to open up with that nano boost onto Cedro to try and let the Winston have more impact, create more space when he jumps, Cowman's ready. He commits the Graviton. And I mean, anyone can do Mathsville. That is one ultimate for two. You take that bargain every day of the week. And the Pharah as well. Malibu kept trying to run with it, kept trying to have N2S up in the sky. But as soon as you lose control of that first point, you're putting yourself right up against the McCree, and he gets so much space to work with unless your team is constantly harassing him, constantly making sure he can't just turn his head the slightest bit up and take you out. Then it's going to be such a hard-fought battle, and Slapton did such a good job at keeping the attention off the McCree. How many times?
It's a real shame that Malibu weren't able to get at least one more point on the board here, because I think they put up a really, really good fight here. Like, Slepton did not walk this home by any stretch of the imagination, and coming away with the 3-1 and having that impact your scoreline so heavily, gotta feel pretty bad for Malibu. They still have one more day of play, and they are still sat pretty close to the top of the group here, so they're not out of the running just yet, and we'll be able to see how they do after tomorrow's games. But ahead of that, we've got one more game coming your way, and that's going to be coming your way after a short break, so don't go too far, everybody. Welcome back, everybody. In true Big Hungry Phil style, I did, of course, forget that before the next match, we will have an interview, and to join us here today is Moser from our winning team, Slepton. Moser, congratulations on the win. How are you feeling?
Pretty good. We kind of went into this match pretty upset about our yesterday performance against Noble. I think we played down to their level more than we played up to ours. So we came out pretty strong initially. And we wanted to make sure that we put a statement on this match that we belonged in Contenders.
I don't think there's any argument that you made that statement today. It's been a really powerful showing from you. Malibu, of course, able to take the one map and a draw. For Malibu as an opponent, what was the biggest threat that you felt you had to deal with, or that you struggled to deal with?
Well, the only good player on that team is Aspire, and Siege was good at making space for him, so we just played to make sure Spire doesn't kill 5 every fight.
So then I've got to ask, was that your reasoning for a lot of the Lucio speed boost strategies, where you just try to close the distance as quickly as possible, just try to get a Spire out of the picture as fast as possible?
No, we've been experimenting with a bunch of comps really, and Lucio has been one that stuck with us pretty strongly recently. So we kind of just stuck to our guns and played what we know works.
That's fair enough. So you've got one more day of trials left, although I do believe you've got to play another game potentially on Saturday because of the remake from the second day of games.
So we play a Triumph just like in 2 minutes.
Oh, right. Oh, you don't get any kind of a break. Wow.
Yes.
Okay, well, I'll wish you luck for that one. How are you feeling about your chances of making this up into Contenders now? And after this one, I'll let you go, I promise.
I think it's gonna be pretty easy. I hear Triumph isn't doing too well from their results in trials, so we're looking to end that with a quick 3-0.
Okay.
And then tomorrow we play Infamous, and I mean, apparently they're playing Moose, so they're gonna be on Hog, and we know how to counter Hog. So
Look, I hate to
be
break it
pretty
to
easy.
you. I was on Twitter earlier today, and there was definite evidence of Moose on the Winston. So you might want to
I don't
revise
think he'll
that
pull
one.
that out against us. I think
Okay,
he'll want
well-
to stay to his best hero.
I think that's a fair assessment. Moxie, anything to add before we let Moza go on to his next match of the day?
I mean, with 2 minutes until you have to go play Triumph. You guys played absolutely wonderfully today, and we always like to sort of ask people when they come on to interview as a reward of braving the socialness. Is there anyone that you want to shout out? Anyone that you think did exceptionally well on your team, yourself included as well, if you feel like it?
Shut up, Cappy Moss. He's not on our team, but he's probably the best cheerleader we could ask for. So yeah, shut up, Cappy Moss.
Shout out Capimas indeed. Moza, thank you very much for joining us. Now, please go and get ready for your next game. Best of luck in it, and we'll look forward to seeing how the rest of your run through Trials goes.
Will do. Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you. And of course, as we mentioned before I got my my order of schedule slightly mixed up, we do have another match coming your way. We're going to throw to another quick break when we get everybody loaded up into lobby and ready to go. Hope you'll continue to experience Contenders Trials NA with us. welcome back, everybody, to the final game of today's NA Contenders Trials broadcast. Big Hungry Phil and Moxie still with you to bring you Lobel versus Lunaris. And Moxie, it's a difficult bracket to make sense of because of the remake games that are about to start. So we don't really know for definite how these two teams line up. What's your thoughts coming into this one?
I mean, Noble are currently sitting at 2 wins, 1 loss. However, we sort of talked about this before the series properly began. Similar to Malibu, they haven't exactly had the hardest run of the bracket. They went up against Infamous, which is probably the hardest map that they encountered alongside Malibu on the first. But then they went up against Slapton, who we know on that day suffered from ping issues.
A little bit.
So it wasn't exactly closely contested, and I definitely think that Lunaris, with that 1 win, 2 losses, currently doesn't really reflect how strong this team can be. Because you look at some of these names and we see Balby around a lot. He's a very good Winston player. He's a very good main tank all around. And you look at that support lineup as well with Noctis, who we know can be a very strong Ana. This is a meta that should favor this team.
Lunaris are generally a team that's been sort of kicking around the let's call it tier 2.5 scene for a little while now, up and down, out of contenders and into open division. For Noble, they've had a little bit of a fall from grace. They were at one point a contenders team. They fell down into open division and have now made the climb back up. But a thing that I want to bring up here is that this is not the same Noble that we saw in open division. This has been almost a complete roster rework, if Liquipedia is anything to go by. So, you know, it's not like we've got a huge amount of footage on what we can expect from Noble here. So, you know, trying to predict the meta preferring Lunaris might be a sensible way to do this, but we just don't know enough about Noble right now to really see how this is going to shake out, I feel.
Yeah, but I mean, going from their current win rate, this is a team that's definitely flourishing in a meta that I think is very much about standout players. This is one of those where you can have those moments where half of your team is gone and you have something like a Genji Blade or your Ashe is able to pop off and hits 3 headshots in a row. You can come back off the brink of that one play. And so if a team hasn't gelled together yet, hasn't fought as frequently as Lunaris' roster, it doesn't mean that there's a big gap between the teams. In fact, I would say at the moment is the most accessible for new rosters to find strength.
Quite right. Well, we are getting ready to go into our first map of the series, and of course, it's the same across all of our matches today. We're going to be starting on Control and, in fact, starting on Nepal. So we're going to get our guys loaded into this game and are ready to go. We have seen, I think, a few different looks on Nepal. What's your feel at the minute for what we can expect to see coming out here, Moxie?
I mean, it differs depending on which submap you get handed. We see a lot of environmental pick compositions geared when it's on places like Sanctum, whereas when it's on Village, a lot of it is about controlling space. So the Ashe comes out because you've just got the high ground given to you if you've got that point percentage under your possession. We see teams run out with the Pharah to try and get an even bigger grip of it. Reaper sometimes comes into play if you're anticipating a heavy dive so that you've got a little bit more backline protection. And that's another thing, backline protection. This is where we see Lucio, this is where we see Moira, this is where we see teams rush into that first fight and just try and steamroll over the other side and finish things as quickly as they begin.
5, 4, 3.
Looks like we're going to be seeing the same thing coming out here from both teams, though, right down to that early Symmetra TP strategy. So expect these guys meeting more or less the mirror matchup in the middle of the map. Second jump is going to come out from Volby. It is using that to great effect. Huge amount of cleave damage coming through. 40% ult charge already compared to Farron Fears just shy of 20. Tree going to push in a little bit and camp this corner, but won't see anybody pushing in just yet. Catches them in the rotation, but knows that he can't take that fight on his own and has to back out. Will have his escape tools, and between himself and Pure, will find a pick here onto Seeker. Pure looking to get a run down here, and will find the D-Mech onto Odd, but Volby and Tree between them have done enough of the heavy lifting here for Lunaris to secure an early win and an early point.
The disengage, it's so clean. The speed boost to keep Lunaris away as soon as Archer and the rest of his team try and surge forward with the Coalescence at their backs. Lunaris play a lot more passively. They don't engage. They don't, because they know if they do, they're as good as dead. And now they've got a Coalescence of their own. Nox has been doing so much on that ratio. It's going to have to fire carry if it even needs to be used.
One of us already committed. Look, with 3 ults committed, in fact, and Tree comes up with the double on that one. Seeker and Mudkip both down, but Lunaris did throw a lot at that fight, Mox.
They still, though, have the tools to delay this next fight to be able to then get them back super quickly. Primal Rage, Sound Barrier, this means that they're going to be staying in a fight for a very long time, and Sluggo on this mirror has been doing so much healing, I don't doubt they're going to be able to match Archer's ult percentage in this next fight.
We'll also have the self-destruct available here for Pure. Expect that to be used predominantly just to try and get that next back. Won't find a pick with it, that's for sure. Sound Barrier allows him safely to get back into the mech, and Odd finds one here. But it's time for Volby to go ape crazy here with the Winston. Won't find a pick just yet. Will have at least a little more survivability in this one, but he can't find the picks. It's going to be Pure that gets the first one in this exchange, with Petal now down, and Slugo in full-on DPS Moira mode, looking to hunt down Mudkip, and we are at 75%, which is tantalizingly close here to last fight territory for Lunaris.
It's such a long fight, and Sluggo has been able to hit that Coalescence up, and now Lunaris still have ultimates to play with, whereas Noble, they're coming in, they're putting all of their hopes on the Death Blossom, a Death Blossom that can be cancelled out by Pure's defense matrix. They can be cancelled out by Sluggo, just letting the team go forward.
Oh, I like this though. Petal coming into the back line to try and get the recontest going on, but left his team in the 5v6, and Tree was able to throw in the Death Blossom and do most of the work, most of the body damage there, allows his team to get in and clean up, and that is a 100-0 shutout on the first round of Nepal.
Noble were just never really able to split Lunaris' focus. They always go for that frontline fight, and until we see the Trace actually go for that contest in the last engagement on the point, that's the only time we ever really see that team properly split up. And that means that Lunaris just have to keep facing the exact same direction. And as long as you're in control of that point, as long as you're delaying all of these fights, as long as you know that there isn't some external threat coming for your backline, you can keep your head right in what's in front of you and dedicate everything to winning out that battle. Going forward, I want to see Noble be a little bit more flexible. I want to see them go for a little bit more of an assassination style where you send distractions onto the front line, whereas the real threat is actually trying to hit those supports.
We've got the mirror matchup coming out once again here, Moxie. Let's see if Noble can make some of those adaptations to be a little bit more successful this time. At the very least, want to see some capture percentage on the board rather than that 1-0 shutout. They are first at the point here, and they set up that defensive position. You can just see Petal away on the outro on the far side, kind of peppering damage, close to the distance now. And it's a full-on brawl of a team fight here. We're going to be looking for this first pick to decide how the rest of the team fight goes. We almost see the displacement pick there onto Seeker. Volby dives into the back and overstays his welcome, overplays his hand, but it's Winston for Winston as Noctis does find the environmental kill. It's Archer and Slugo now with those dueling coalescences, and Archer coming out on top here as the demon comes through onto Leo, as the kill comes through onto Light. We get the Death Blossom from Seeker in a fight that was pretty much done and dusted, I think.
He wanted to really clear the threats away from Lunaris to make sure that Archer didn't get taken out on the tail end of that Colossus, but it was a heavy investment. And it means that Lunaris are going to be coming in at an advantage, the favorites in this next fight, if Noble aren't able to secure themselves an early pick with Odyssey.
Oh, we are seeing a lot of pulse bombs being eaten by defense matrices today, and Odd gets his name on the board for that particular high score. Tree falls to pedal and a bit of incoming damage from the tanks of Noble, who are now rounding up 30%. Goes up by Seeker, and Archer with another Coalescence might have to use this just to keep his tanks alive here, as they are taking a phenomenal amount of damage here. And it might not even be enough even through all that. No, Odd does just escape with his mech still intact. Tree's going to find Fire and Fear, but that looks like it might be this fight over for now.
It's the same problem, but different team, Phil. The Coalescence comes out, but no one looks at the Moira. And so the tanks stay up. The Moira stays up and Lunaris stay off this point. They'll be coming in with a Coalescence of their own. They can try and secure like passage a little bit more easily with this pulse bomb, but you've got to hit that back line.
Pulse bomb's gonna come out, will secure the stick. Out as well, but it's on the self-destruct that gets the pick. Now back into the neck and diving back onto point. It's 76-0 here for Noble. They are starting to lose players, but they're not losing them rapid enough to really impact their positioning on the point just now. Noble's still in control as Lunaris managed one more pick. Seeker's going to go down here. But they're doing a really good job here of just tagging into and off the point just to keep this going that little bit longer. Sound barrier now out from both, keeping the teams alive. No picks coming out on the back of it just yet. Bulby's able to find Odd. Light's going to go down here as well. And it looks like maybe Lunaris have the presence on the point to at least get one tick in. Self-destruct out. Seeker finds one with a Death Blossom, but Volby also taking Seeker out of the equation here. Primal Rage from Volby too, just to buy that last few meters of space.
Fogo's gone. The Moira was
That's terrible.
It couldn't fade out of it. The hammer just booped right off, and now Noble can just come right back in.
Bombs out, 3 down. Light able to find Archer. It's not going to be enough here because the kills are starting to rack up now for Noble. And in fact, to the final few seconds, they managed to get almost everybody off the field from Lunaris, and they are seconds away from securing the flip. Lunaris, they might be able to tag in, but they've not really got anything to keep this going with. There's Volby back in the Wrecking Ball. We have seen the Wrecking Ball pay huge dividends here on this map. Tree did have the Death Blossom ready to go, but he didn't have the health to do anything with it. And this is one more of those zombie fights, Moxie. It's not going anywhere, no matter how hard Lunaris may think otherwise.
Yeah, they've got the ultimates, but they don't have the players alive to use them, Phil. And I think we're gonna be seeing the big breaker between both of these teams in the next series. It's already there.
Yeah.
The supports. If the Moira stays up, the team walks away victorious. If the Moira goes down, the team's going to be going back to spawn in a body bag.
Yeah, it's not the way you want to be going back to spawn, if indeed you are going out back to spawn at all. As we move over onto the final subset here on Nepal, I kind of feel like we've had the tempo of the match set, we've had the flavor of the match set, neither team really making any adaptations yet.
Yeah, both of them going to be rolling out once again with that Lucio, Moira, Reaper, Winston, Diva, and Tracer combo. And again, I want to see these Tracers go more proactively against those Moiras.
Yeah, you've really got to be hunting them down here because they provide so much value in the bulky aspect of the fight. Lunaris with a nice sturdy position on the point just now. They can control this main choke in, and Tree is such a threat here as well because the second that Winston pops his head over the parapet, out come the Hellfire shotguns, and it becomes a lot harder to stay in the fight if you're a Winston. Dueling Coalescence is now out for both teams. Let's see who gets the opening pick, and it's going to be Volby that goes down here. The Coalescence over, encroaching on a couple of ultimates here, but nobody really doing anything definitive just yet, Moxie.
Soundbar are going to be available for Mudkip, but Noble are keeping a hold of it, and now that they've got the point flip, Phil, Lunaris is just going to have to give up the ghost and get themselves out as quickly and safely as they possibly can. They're going to be coming into this next fight with block. In fact, they're even going to be starting it out.
Wow, this is a heavy investment from both teams. Self-destruct, both Death Blossoms, a Pulse Bomb as well. The only things that are left here are the Primal Rages and more or less a self-destruct here for Pure. But that was such a weird investment, Moxie.
Lunaris really baited Noble into thinking they were retreating, threw on the Sign Cry to let Tree have a little bit more survivability in the Death Blossom, but now they don't have the Sign Cry to try and survive the aggression Noble are putting into them.
And Parent Fear at that telltale 1000 HP. Looking for some environmental kills, won't find them. Instead, Archer able to claim credit for that one, but it's a convincing fight win for Noble.
But Noble this time invested heavily. That was a lot of ultimates coming out from that defending team, Phil. And it wasn't even really to delay the fight. They haven't been able to milk that percentage as much as they possibly could have, and now Lunaris have that potential. They've got the Coalescence. Light is extremely close to that pulse bomb, and Sluggo goes down. Means that Lunaris is going to just have to back out and wait. Noble doing such a good job at controlling the high ground, knowing that Lunaris want to go aggressive with this Moira ultimate, taking up the space so that they can't get in.
Very good here for Pure as well to also get his name on the board in terms of eating pulse bombs from the enemy Tracer. Doesn't want to be outdone there. Bit of a dive there from Og to deal with the damage of coming in from the Moira. Og closing in on having a self-destruct. We know it's not necessarily the most impactful ultimate, and he's going to get focused down, and with a bit of help there, the pulse bomb will become the mech. Didn't have the ultimate ready to go to get the mech back. Tree pulls the cord on the Death Blossom, and Lunaris suddenly turn up to the fight at 99-0, and they're in it to win it. We may see this come all the way back to 99-99.
But we may see the extremely quick seesaw, Phil. Because Noble, since that they lost the fight, were more than happy to let Lunaris invest heavily. And when you're sitting at 99-0%, you need one final fight. And they backed out with ultimates. They're going to be coming in with so much at their backs. Lunaris have got to be able to punish them if they try and get onto this point too early.
This is pretty much the full war chest. Comes in with Death Blossom, but gets protected there somehow by both defense matrices, so no value out of that one. Does buy a lot of space, forces Lunaris off the point for now as they back away from that ultimate. We've got the Primal Rage, we've got the Self-Destruct, we've got everything in play right now for Noble, and they're starting to find the kills. Deals with the tree, and now it's Baron Fear looking to try and get the work down onto the enemy Diva of Pure. Will secure the D-Mech here. They've already secured the flip. Couple of pesky hangers on here from Lunaris, trying to keep this point in contestation that little bit longer, but Noble have momentum on their side. Light manages to punch back here, taking Archer out of the fight, but Seeker still at full health, still dealing a huge amount of damage, puts paid to Tree, and that is it. It's a 2-1 to Noble on the pod.
It's such a smart play from Noble. They know they just need that one last fight. They hold on to everything, and then they put it in. And Lunaris, they may be coming into that Coalescence, but they just don't have the numbers there to try and keep them up. Once that Diva Mech's gone, they just don't have anything that can really set the spin cycle up. Bobby tries with the Hammond, but we don't really get to see him burn as much seconds as he wants, and so you don't really get the chance to come properly back. But moving forward, Phil, I think we're seeing both of these guys are teams that are going to be fighting tough and nail to that very last percent.
They are, but before we can bring you the rest of this battle, we are going to have to throw to a very quick break whilst we sort out some stuff behind the scenes, but we won't be gone too long, guys. We're back with you as soon as we can. dramatic device of Immedius Res, dumping you right into the middle of the action. We're going to be seeing Lunaris starting on the defense on Volskaya, and if you've been watching the first round, this composition should be absolutely no surprise at all from Lunaris.
Once again, I'm going to be looking at these Moira's half class though. They got away with so very much.
I think in the Moira's defense, right? Or no, in fact, in the other player's defense, the coalescence is really bright. I can understand not wanting to look at it.
You do though, you have to, because one thing that I'm seeing coming out from Lunaris especially is that they orientate the damage towards the person who's currently being healed up by the coalescence, rather than the Moira. And the second they make that change to go for the support rather than the tank currently being boosted by it, we're gonna see that impact become so much larger. And with Petal still sticking on this Tracer, you've got to worry for that backline.
That cannot happen. You cannot lose light as quickly as that. You cannot give your enemy the 5v6 advantage in the opening seconds of the fight. Light's going to be back fairly quickly, but the damage is done. Pure's been demeched, and Soko is landing crazy hooks here. Noxus is going to go down, and that's going to be the cap. There's just not even the hope of a recontest.
You know, if you're not gonna say it, I'm gonna say it. The full look like they're gonna take this in light speed, and Lunaris, they're going to try to contest this, but it will be to their detriment.
When I say there's no hope of a recontest, what I really mean is there's no hope of a successful recontest. And Tree just got... I don't know if you call that. Soko just waited, lined it up perfectly, and just removed him from the game.
Light's going to be going on to the Mei because Lunaris know they've got to find some form of stopping power, and it will be literally stopping power, but Bulby is gone. They've already lost a main tank fill, and the ice block is just far too early.
This is absolutely disgusting from Noble. They have not given Lunaris any quarter at all. Sound barriers out, pulse bombs out. We're going to see a 5-minute plus time bank here on a 2 CP map, Moxie.
What was faster? The break or Noble's run on Volskaya?
Noble's run on Volskaya by like 30 seconds or so.
These guys just did not give Lunaris the time of day.
No.
Lunaris go for that pick light onto Mei to try and slow this team down. But because Soko has been fed so much ult charge, the whole hog comes out and forces that Mei block early. And Noble maneuvered themselves into position on the point where even if Light's Mei will had tried to separate part of the team, they would still be able to regroup. It wouldn't separate anybody out. And so everything that Lunaris do to try and put onto Noble to slow them down just completely backfires because they swapped off their heroes. They swapped out of their charged up ultimate meters. And now we're going to see them have to match that pace. They can't play passive. They've got to try and take this point as quickly as possible. And Noble, with how Soko has been playing this Roadhog, he's going to be looking for light. He's going to be looking for that Tracer. He's going to be looking to shut this push down in literally the first second it begins.
Soko looks like he's been tagged into this map specifically because he's here to play the Roadhog rather than the main tank that we saw in the previous round, and it looks like it's a smart decision. He's been hitting hooks left, right, and center, and almost always getting the kill on the back of it.
Phil, it's forcing them to play a Reinhardt. Bulby's on the Reinhardt because they are so terrified of that Roadhog hook finishing this fight before it begins. You've still got that Lucio speed boost, so you can still get in to close up the distance on this fight and find more of an impact.
I like this adaptation from Lunaris. I think running the rushdown comp with Mei gives them a lot more options, and we will see one tick almost given over here for free, because it seems like Noble is struggling to find a meaningful way to close the distance. That's gonna do it though. Bulby's down, Light's down, and that's it. It just took that one mispositioning, took Bulby out of the fight, and Noble just go to town.
They can play aggressive, they can also play patient. The one thing that they were waiting for was either that Reinhardt shield to break or the Reinhardt spine to go the exact same way. The second that main tank's gone, they absolutely pounce. There's nothing to shut them down. Lunaris will be going for the exact same sort of play. This time, though, they'll have the coalescence in the first couple of seconds of the engagement. They'll be able to let Volby go a lot more aggressively forward.
Feel like Petal's on the hunt here, knows who he'd like, knows that there isn't really the threat of a D.Va defense matrix here. We'll see the Blizzard committed nice and early. The pin comes through, and Petal gets taken out, and I don't think the pulse bomb connected. Volby gets 2 with a fire strike, comes out of this with a shatter. It's not been quite so quick as Noble managed, but Lunaris have found their way through this, and they've done it in style.
There's potential as well for Lunaris to be able to pick up point B just as quickly as Noble. Petal's going to go onto the forest, similar to why we saw Light go onto the Mage to just try and slow this team down, poke damage at them from afar, force Noctis into using that sound barrier far too early, and also force Pure to peel for that Pharah rather than do that for the backline.
An aggressive sound barrier from Noctis triggers the answering sound barrier for Mudkip, and Soko finds a hook, but it needed to hook Light because Light got off that Death Blossom and found 2 picks here. 1 tick already available, and Sluga desperately trying to track down Volby and keep him alive, and in that fight, Volby's going to go down, but they find the trade with Seeker taken out of the fight here as well. Petal's finding damage, finding work here, but not keeping themselves in the fight in a meaningful way. Soko still self-surviving on the point, opts to take a breather, and might be just what's needed here to secure a stabilization and prevent any more contests coming through from Lunaris.
Petal is the biggest contributor in that fight. He draws Pure away. The D.Va goes for the dog tag chase, tries to get the Pharah out of the way, and that's when we see Soko, seconds after the D.Va's gone, seconds after Defense Matrix is removed, get the pick onto Sluggo. And that means Noble can start setting themselves up onto this point, but you've got to go for that same sort of play. This time,
oh
no.
Oh, you cannot let that happen. Volby got hooked and he got deleted by the Doomfist on that one. Petal opened up with the barrage. And now we're going to have, at the very least, a 2-minute time bank difference between our 2 teams here.
There's no CC. Other than that Mei, other than Tree's primary freeze, there is nothing to shut this Doomfist down. And he's already 47% to that Meteor Strike. He can go for that backline. He can be that constant pressure, similar to how we saw Pale constantly drawing away from the backline resources.
Oh no, Tree! That's absolutely tragic! That was such a massive part of that game plan. Conquering it with the self-destruct would have been huge. Would have been a fight winning, a match-winning ultimate for them, and it just gets sucked down into that D.Va defense matrix. That was unfortunate to say the least.
Odd. He's such a good D.Va. He is probably one of the best Divas currently running around American contender scene, in my opinion, just because he uses defense matrix to force the other side really to play around keeping him out of his mech, and he punishes anyone who tries to slot an ultimate in too early when he's still got it online. Now he can punish Lunaris. He's got the D.Va bomb, you can throw that in aggressively, you've got the side to use aggressively, and Soko gets the first kill again!
Okay, there's an equalizer though, as Seeker will go down here, but you've got to know that Soko is there, and he's been hitting hooks all game long. Mudkip's gonna deal with Volby here, and that's Noble back in control of point. 2 minutes and under for Lunaris now, and the chase is on here from Noble. They want some of these exit frags. They really want all the ult charge they can get here.
Well, they need it, because Lunaris are going to be coming in pretty confident, Phil. They've got the coalescence at their backs to enable this dive to come aggressively in. And that's what the really struggle is, trying to get this dive safely in. As soon as you're able to hit the backline with all of the damage, especially with Tree on this Doomfist and Light on the Reaper, those supports are going to be gone within seconds. It's just you've got to get past the boundary.
Oh, This is so good and so crafty from Pedal. Doesn't necessarily need the kill, but burns a lot of that coalescence out of the clock. Won't get a kill with the Death Force before being taken out by the rocket punch from Tree, but the damage has already been done. There's no chance of punching back here. You've got to retreat now if you're Lunaris. You need to get out of the fight and come back in for what could be your last good run through in the final minute.
That was your best shot at going in safely and aggressively. Coalescence is gone. With the rate that Sluggo's been charging, he will have it back within a couple of moments, but you've got 49 seconds left on the bank, and you don't want to be popping Primal Rage just to get yourself through the door, Phil.
This is going to be a difficult task. They do have tools, but Noble have proven time and time again that they've typically got the answers. Here's Tree with the Meteor Strike, going to be difficult to really pin anything down with this. Oh, wow, what? Petal just walks right under it and gets demolished! Lunaris now looking pretty good here at the point. They've got 2 ticks going, but Noble have the opportunity to get into the contest going. Death Blossom, a few more tags in from Noble will see them hit overtime. That's what they're playing for here. Preventing Lunaris from getting a point on the board. That's it. That's overtime. This is going to be one more round on Volskaya, even if they can. Cap here. Archer tags back in, but it's immediately deleted. Seeker manages to get one on the way out, but this has got to be done. Surely there's no coming back here for Noble.
But Phil, time bank.
Yeah.
That's a big difference.
It's a thonker, is that one?
That's what? 5 times? Not even that.
No,
it was
it's
overtime.
infinitely more. It's infinitely more time.
5 minutes and 18 seconds. You heard it now. Phil thinks that Infinity is worth 5 minutes and 18. And to Lunaris, it's going to feel like it.
Oh, it really is. Yeah, this is rough.
This is going to be such a hard defense. You can't afford to lose anyone early on. And honestly, the biggest problem that these guys are going to have to worry about going from the past, it's Soko's Roadhog. How many times has he come in with that hook, fished someone out from this team, and just deleted them? And that's all Noble need. They don't need the coalescence. They don't need the sound barrier. They just need that Roadhog to get that first pick, and then they push.
Hello there.
It's a difficult situation for Lunaris. I don't know that Tree on the Doomfist is the right pick here to counter what Noble will be running. He was finding value, but
I like
you've got to be in the same position. Like, you're looking for that pick.
I mean, I like this. It means that if your supports go down, you're not necessarily out of the fight, because you've got sustain. If Tree is able to hit his abilities, he gets shielding. If Light's able to hit head, he gets health.
I like this from Petal. Went straight for the Moira, listening to your advice, and is now going to be drawing attention by tagging onto point for Seeker gets the opening pick. Reaper, a really good counter for a Doomfist, because you can't survive long in that 1v1. Lights down, and I could keep casting this fight, Moxie, but it's done. This fight is over. Lunaris not really left with a leg to stand on this one. Bold in with the jump in, and that is it. One last attempt at a tag in here from Tree. Won't find much, and the timer runs down. Noble bringing us to match points.
Unfortunately, Lunaris just sort of allowed Noble too much space. When you're running that Doomfist, when you're running that Reaper, you've got to proactively look for the picks. Remember that you've got self-sustain. You can put yourself into aggressive situations where other people might not be able to see themselves out of. But they remember that they can't afford to give up a single tick, and it shows in how the composition plays. It's a lot more unsure of itself. And Noble are just able to wait them out. They get the first pick on the board, then they manage to remove the Moira before Coalescence shows up, and they're able to get that little bit needed.
Still, we're not at the end of the series just yet. We are about to go into our hybrid map, and it wouldn't be the first time we've seen a reverse sweep in Trials, Mox.
No, I mean, we get to see it an awful lot. So, the Broom's still very much there, and we're definitely seeing Lunaris looking far stronger than they have been Volskaya on that point where they were able to pick up point B in the overtime. They looked the strongest we've currently seen them, and their defense, it had roots. It had real staying power if they'd been able to play aggressively. The win condition was there, it was on the table. They were just unfortunately not within reach of it.
Sadly not, but we are going to be taking a very quick break here in between this and our next map. But as always, you know the drill, guys. Don't go too far because we're going to be right back. Welcome back, everybody. This could very well be the last match of today's broadcast. Lunaris up against Noble. Honestly, in that last round, Noble were looking kind of unstoppable, Moxie.
I mean, I was talking to you when we had that very short break, and I think Lunaris can definitely come back. They just have to start figuring out where Soko is.
Yeah.
Because this Roadhog is Noble's advantage. It's like they have an ultimate, primed and ready every single fight. When Soko sends a hook out, it's going to find something. And if Lunaris run out with this Doomfist and Reaper yet again, you've got to go for the aggressive play, and that's gonna put you right on the wrong end of those Roadhogs.
The unfortunate thing for Lunaris is there is a delay between our casting advice and their gameplay, and they're probably not watching the stream anyway, so they can't hear us saying, watch out for the guy playing Roadhog. That's the guy with his stomach out and a hook in one hand. They're just going to have to figure it out on their own, Moxie.
I mean, you can see Pure is even going to be there with that D.Va defense matrix. They know that Soko's going to find a lot of value, and so hopefully the D.Va can defense matrix when the hook comes through to stop the follow-up from being brutal. But look already at how Light is falling, and he's down.
How did Light take so much damage in such a short space of time? This cannot keep happening for Lunaris. Noble, they swarm onto the point, and they are now just looking to dislodge what is left of Lunaris. There's Bulby. Main tank is down and out. There's one tick on the board already. If you're Lunaris, the best thing you can do here is just try and burn as much time off the clock as possible, because Noble are gunning for you. Sluggo, my friend, you are not going to crouch walk your way out of this one.
Noble are so aggressive. Give them an inch, they'll take a mile at least. And Lunaris, I like this. Pure's going on to the Zarya, so you're not cancelling out the hook follow-up with the bubble, you're cancelling the hook. And that should deny a lot of Soko's impact, especially with Tree back onto that Reaper going to be trying to shut that off tank down. But first, you've got to have the space. And already Noble wanting to start this fight off and win it immediately. They're up on the high ground. They're baiting Lunaris onto the car.
Yeah, I quite like this actually. Lunaris just opt to bypass them and go through the car themselves, but because there are so many ults, because there's so much synergy here for Noble, Lunaris just don't stand a chance in that fight.
That, though, was an eco push. Sluggo had Coalescence, doesn't use it. They're waiting for Noble to exhaust themselves, to tire themselves out so that they can come in and have that stranglehold on this high ground by winning one of these fights. That's all they need, one singular fight win. But Noble, they might not have the Coalescence. Pretty soon they're going to have everything else.
Oh no. You can almost see that conversation happening there by Pistol telling Seeker that Light didn't have the rewind. Seeker closes the distance and gets the kill. Soko pops the whole hog. Odd leading the way, chasing down Tree, and it's another quick team fight win for Noble. Lunaris, I don't even know if they get a touch here.
Pure's only got one allied bubble, and Noble are doing everything in their power to draw it out, and he's fighting so early!
Stop walking in line of fire of Soko's hook because the guy don't miss.
Well, Lunaris will be coming into this next fight with a lot of ultimates, but because of how quick these fights have been going on, they haven't been able to build up to Death Loss, and they haven't been able to build up to Graviton. These aren't fight-winning ultimates, though. These are just delay tactics.
At the very least, taking out Soko here is a big win for Lunaris, and they know it because suddenly they surge forward and they commit ultimates into this. Dika went for one as well, but I don't know if I think that was a great idea. Regardless, they're still winning this team fight. The kills are there for them. There's Pure on high energy, but 0 health, which is might as well be 0 health. And you know what? I love the way Sluggo is playing here. Just like, I'm just going to crouch, and you're going to ignore me, and we're going to just delay the card.
Just think small thoughts. But if you're Pure, you're thinking aggressive thoughts. You have to get Odd out of this mech. This D.Va has already denied one win condition in the form of the Blizzard on Volskaya. Now you're hinging all of your bets on the Big Bang, this grab, this Pulse Bomb. You can't go for this ultimate play when Odd still got that mech.
We won't see that combo come out, but the Pulse Bomb on its own will deal with Archer. However, 2 kills on the board now for Noble means that for Lunaris means that we're not going to see Noble push in too much. We have got Odd committing the self-destruct here. Graviton Surge comes out, and it looks like Pure has just enough charge to make that really stick this time, and Lunaris continue to hold and continue to burn time off the clock.
It's the patience. Pure was waiting for that D.Va bomb. Uses Graviton when Odd is out of the mech. Can't use Defense Matrix to cancel it out. But now if you're Lunaris, you're back to that same horrible place. You've got to delay this fight as long as you possibly can for Tree to come into this Death Blossom. Otherwise, Noble can just walk forward when you've got nothing to contest them.
And with the Pulse Bomb on the hunts, we'll see the kill come through onto Bulby, receives the sleep, and getting a little bit of tactical calisthenic action thrown his way as well. And if you're Slugo, maybe you feel you've earned that right. Here's the whole hog from Soko, traps them up in spawn. 2 meters and change left on the cart as the kills start to ramp on through for Noble. Tree tries to come back in on the Bastion, but it's too little, too late, and just shy of 3 minutes in the bank for Noble.
And again, we're seeing Soko. This is a player that Noble really hinge a lot of their attacks on. When he's down, they don't push. When he's up, they just walk aggressively towards Lunaris. And we're starting to see Lunaris that putting more pieces on the board, trying to get the Roadhog out of the way. But Noble just have so much aggression, so much fuel. The instant someone tries to step near the Roadhog, if you don't have communication, if you don't send at least 2 threats towards him, they just get deleted individually one by one until they've got no members left. And moving into your attack, when Soko's on the defense, when Soko has the chance to set himself up in all of these weird places you don't expect a Roadhog to be, is going to be when Lunaris have their toughest task ahead.
And I wonder for Lunaris, how much of this is not having the mirror matchup, not having somebody that is as confident in the Roadhog role as Soko clearly is, to have that raw pick potential to threaten off angles, to just be, I wouldn't want to call him the tip of the spear because it's not really how you're playing the Roadhog, but just not having somebody in that role feels like a real misstep for Lunaris.
Well, Lunaris are going to just try and roll over Soko, quite literally. Noctis is going to be coming out on that Lucio. Bulby once again sitting on the Reinhardt with the shield. And Tree going to be that with the Mei wall to try and separate this road if he goes too aggressive. Keep him away from the rest of his team, punish him, take him out, and then move on to the rest of the pieces. The hook comes out, but it doesn't find anything. And this is Lunaris' go sign.
That's right. Well, they're going to take the high ground rotation and chase Noble on into Cafe. They've now got a good defensive position here, and they've chased off Seeker, who took a lot of damage here, and he's in a very precarious position. Receives the Fist of Doom from Tree on the Mei, and we're looking potentially at a quick path here for Lunaris. They've played this exceptionally well, and they've come out with the composition expressly designed to counter what Noble are running.
I love Tree's wall. Soko sitting up on the high ground, trying to keep himself out of the fight until Hook's off cooldown. And the second Tree catches a whiff of off-tank, boom! Up goes the wall, away goes Soko's impact. And if Lunaris keep going as aggressive as we're seeing them, if they keep walling off Soko's line of sights, they've definitely got a real chance of pushing this cart, especially when they're about to come in to a blizzard. And now it's all going to once again come down to Odd. That diva, that defense matrix has been the bane of Lunaris' existence.
Would not be the first blizzard that Odd has eaten today. It's a nice stick, it's an even nicer ice block, but Tree just can't survive the damage that Seeker can put out. Noble are going to back away from Sluga's Coalescence for now, but they know that momentum is on their side. Bolby gets forced into the waiting Hellfire shotguns of Seeker, and it might not be a point A defense, but this is maybe the best place to hold on this street phase in Hollywood.
And Lunaris did not want this to happen. That's why they put in the Coalescence. They know they've got to try and keep Noble away. Otherwise, Soko gets to set himself up again on this high ground with this hook. And now with your speed boost, you can't really close the distance. He's going to be too far removed from the fight for you to properly contest. Once again, you're just going to be using that wall to try and keep him away.
Noble have done a very good job here of scattering. They know that they can't really afford to engage Lunaris in the wall until they have some tools online. This being one of them. It's not good enough to keep Seeker in the fight, however, and we can't see Archer getting the work done that they do with the Coalescence. Didn't really keep anybody alive. And this may be a very quick point B here for Lunaris. They lose life, but Tree is able to get the Blizzard off. Self-destruct in over the top from Odd is going to take Slugo out of the equation. He did have another Coalescence ready to go. It's a Shatter coming out from Bolby. Doesn't find too much value in the cart, grind to a bit of a halt here. Soko deals with Noctis. Lights coming back in with that Death Blossom. Wants to maybe go toe-to-toe with Soko, but I wouldn't recommend it. That hook is going to disrupt that ult.
He baits it out with the Wraith form, but unfortunately he just doesn't have the numbers behind him. Noble are able to get back into the fight faster, give the Roadhog more reassurance, and so the Reaper can't capitalize on it being out. And he's just chewed on after a couple of seconds, and now it's the exact same problem. Look how aggressive Soko is going!
Wow.
He knows! He's walking forward, he's providing so much ult charge for his supports. Archer's already had another coalescence, and all the while Lunaris have to play passively until they feel ready, until they've got that speed boost to try and bypass the threat of the hog.
You've got to be hoping, if you're Lunaris, that you can find a way to get some value from this Death Blossom, but Odd has been so good at mitigating this damage that it's unlikely to really find too much value. Seeker goes for one of his own, pulls the cord, spins to win, finds light, does enough damage there to take Tree out of the equation with a bit of help from Odd, and that's the fight over once more from Lunaris.
It feels like Lunaris are waiting with this Death Blossom until Tree hits that Blizzard. It's a combo we see a lot when Mei and Reaper get run together. The danger, Phil, is that both can be devoured by Odd. He's a hungry, hungry diva. Still waiting for Blizzard to get that board game in their merch shop, guys. You should get on that pretty soon, but if Lunaris play their cards right and they're able to deny Odd's defense matrix, they're going to have a lot of sway on the fight.
I love this wraparound we see coming in from Noble. They get in around behind Lunaris and turn them back over towards the cards. But it's not worked out for them this time. Light pulls out the Death Blossom and gets the D-Mech onto Odd. Tree is able to freeze out Soko, and given where the cards is, we might actually see them cap B here without much of a recontest. Even if they do recontest, they're coming into a Blizzard.
But they've got the sound barrier, and Soko can finish things off with that whole hog.
There's a contest. Sound barrier out from both Lucios now, so don't expect any kills anytime soon. Keeps them nice and healthy. They do just squeak it through here, though.
Oh, Noble had to try and scatter away from that Blizzard, Phil. And so that time bank will be renewed. Lunaris picking up that second point, but Noble are still the winners of this fight, and they're going to come out on top when it comes to those ultimate meters, Phil. And now you're going to be facing that exact same problem for Lunaris with this role composition. You've got to try and get into this fight with what you're running, the Reaper, the Mei. All of these guys operate on close quarters. Noble, if they keep distancing themselves, they can still have the impact. They can still take up the high ground and just poke away at Lunaris from afar.
Light has to give away the high ground here. Now wants to go toe-to-toe with Pistol, will force out the rewind here, but whilst Light is busy trying to chase down that kill, Archer's able to get the coalescence off and find 2 kills. Odd's able to take Light out of the equation here, and losing Pistol turns out to be inconsequential for Noble.
Lunaris, though, are about to hit a big old bout of aggression. They're not running up against the shield. And so, realistically, theoretically, Volby Shatter is absolutely free. You just have to get into position close enough to use it. Oh,
how in the heck do you get a portable kill onto a Reinhardt? Light's able to get the punch back here as Odd's going to go down. Soko throwing most of that whole hog into either a defense matrix or an ice block, and now caught out a little bit in no man's land. Archer throws in the coalescence, but he's at low health here. He's still able to find 2 before the Blizzard puts paid to him. Cart still rolling forward though for Lunaris.
They've got the Shadow Pure so close to that bomb. Lunaris know that they've got to finish this as quickly as they possibly can with 55 seconds left on the clock. They don't want this push to be in overtime. They don't want to risk Noble coming back in with this respawn advantage, but they're going to wait. The Shadow's still available for Volby. They're getting close to that bomb. They want to combo it up.
Oh, this is great from Seeker into the back, looking for support. Might instead find the waiting head hitbox of a Reinhardt. Won't get the pick, but gets into the back. Might get frozen out in the middle of the ultimate. Won't find a huge amount of value with this one. And the kills coming in for Lunaris. They've taken out 3. Light pops the Death Blossom, finds Petal, and now the cart can roll in. I don't think we're getting a recontest. Lunaris, they get a stay of execution. They do get one more crack at Hollywood.
And Phil, they get 1 more minute as well. It wasn't overtime. It was so close. It was so close to being an overtime push, but they're able to get it in with literally seconds to spare. And now Lunaris have 1 minute to match up against Noble's 344, and we're seeing a team that has adapted. They understand that Soko is the real threat. They understand that if they don't take this fight as quickly as possible to Noble, they open the window for so many Roadhog hooks to come through and win out the fight before it even starts. And so they've grabbed the speed boost, they've grabbed the Mei, they've grabbed the Rhine Shield, and they're doing everything in their power to stem that Roadhog stay-in.
And this is a new adaptation that we've got coming out from Noble on the defense. They've got to hold this for a minute, and they decided that the way to do this is to put Petal on the Doomfist rather than the Tracer.
Oh, this is mean. This is literally decoy. Petal is going to be the dummy that goes in and takes up all of Lunaris' abilities, all of Lunaris' shutdown, right onto that DPS, and then either Soko comes in with that hook, or Seeker with that Reaper, and they just clean up.
The one thing that they haven't counted on, though, is Light is coming out on the Sombra. I don't know if this is a scouting pick, or if he... Yeah, okay, it's a scouting pick. What are we going to come out on instead? Back over onto the Reaper.
Onto the Reaper.
Yeah,
so this is good. Like, if the Doomfist jumps in, you can Ray Form out, and that means that the Doomfist is going to have to have his work really cut out for him, because there's not a lot that's going to bait Lunaris into using those abilities. There's not a lot the Doomfist can really connect with.
It's in high ground rotation again from Lunaris. We saw them last time on their offense make this push. Whether or not Noble are going to respond in the same way remains to be seen. It's a nice read there from Light on trying to take out Petal, but we lose Sugo, and we lose Noctis and Light with 15 seconds left to go on the clock. There's no coming back from this, Moxie.
It's the decoy effect. Petal goes in, pulls all of the attention away, and Soko, milliseconds after, gets the kill onto the model. And now with 1 second left, you're not going to be able to touch.
A good try from Noctis, a lot of speed generated there, very nearly with the tag in onto point, but too little, too late. And now Noble just need that 1/3 capture on the point, and they've got 3 minutes, 44 seconds to do it.
And they took point A on their first run of Hollywood in an absolute breakneck of a pace. So Lunaris have got to do what they did on their attack. They've got to get proactive. They can't allow Noble to simply walk past that first choke. They've got to push this team. They've got to make them pay for every meter they step forward in blood.
Ready for battle.
Still, stronger defenses have been mounted before. It's not impossible to burn 3 minutes 44 seconds off the clock here. Do you have a little bit of a switch up in the DPS lineup here? We've got the Farah Doomfist coming out from Lunaris this time.
Hello.
Is this desperation, Moxie? Is this scrabbling for answers from Lunaris?
Well, they know that Noble is most likely going to run out on that Reaper and Doomfist, and that's a lot of backline assassination potential, but it's not hit scan. And so the only thing that Tree's going to have to worry about on this Farah is that tank lineup. Soko's hooks and Odd on that D.Va with the boosters trying to close the distance, and that should provide a lot of space for Light and Bolby to work with if they're able to walk aggressively forward.
Interesting to note that Noble don't have a direct counter here to the Farah, so the Farah could cause them a lot of trouble if we can see a few rockets connect in the right place. Seeker slept out and in a dangerous position, but has the rate form and gets out more or less intact here, which cannot be the same for Bolby, who just gets the complete works, everything thrown at him. Light's gonna go down as well. Slugo trapped in a room, worked over by Petal with the pulse pistols. And this surely is it here for Lunaris. Archer takes Tree out of the sky. There's the D-Mech onto Pure. There's the pick onto Pure. Bolby would tag back in on the Wrecking Ball. Light as well on the Doomfist, but you just haven't got the numbers, my friend. There's the third tick and a pretty quick 3-0 for Noble.
Noble see the Farah and understand the longer that fight is delayed, the more poke damage that they take, the worse their chances are going to be at walking away with a victory. And they've got the Lucio. They just speed boost in, they close up the distance, they pressure not the Pharah, but the Roadhog down. And when you go for the Roadhog, suddenly your supports are faced with that choice. The Mercy dealing with the Pharah up in the sky has got to turn her attention to what's going on in the ground. The Anna's got to turn her face as well. And even that just was not enough to keep him up because that's never going to match the healing potential of a Moira and a Lucio. And as soon as Noble were able to get their entire composition onto that point safely and turn that fight from a poke war of attrition into sustain, they had the win.
A very good showing there from Noble, all told. Good understanding of their win condition and planning to execute it correctly. And I believe that may even put Noble at the top of Group B, certainly in contestation for that role. For Lunaris, unfortunately, doesn't do too much to their standings. They're still down in the bottom couple of this group ahead of tomorrow's games. Maybe some chance of redemption here if tomorrow's game is easy enough for them, but it looks like we may see them drop back down into Open Division in the next season.
Yeah, they don't have an easy run of it, Phil. Their next one is going to be up against Malibu.
Yeah, Malibu looking pretty good earlier on today. We have seen them already take the win over Noble earlier in this week's Contenders Trials NA game. So, yeah, I don't have a lot of hope here for Lunaris, but at the very least, it should give them some good footage to practice and improve upon.
And I mean,
gents,
by all means,
go on, Moxie.
I mean, if they play like we saw them today and they did have that adaptability, they saw what Noble were coming out with, they put things in place that we don't expect to see. Reinhardt and Lucio, and they were able to keep Bulby alive, I think, far longer than you would expect a Reinhardt to be kept alive in the current day and age of Overwatch, and that's definitely something they can take away with. I think what really hurt them was that they just were never really able to start a fight at an advantage. They always had to try and close the distance and hope that one of them hadn't been picked off.
Well, as we said, lots to learn from this game today, and hopefully Lunaris will have the time and energy to do that. But, ladies and gents, we are going to throw to just a very, very quick break while we get our interview lined up for you. So just stay tuned for a few minutes more, and we get to talk to one of the winners of today's game. Welcome back, everybody. We did warn you that was only going to be a quick break, and we are back with Archer, support player for Noble. So, Archer, first off, congratulations on the win. How are you feeling?
I'm feeling pretty good. I mean, yeah, I don't know. It was just a fun matchup.
Okay. That's good. So, looking ahead or looking back, like coming into this game, looking at Lunaris, did you feel that you had any specific preparation to do, or was this just another run-of-the-mill Contenders Trials match for you?
Well, we saw them beat Triumph with like 6-man dive, so we just knew that because we played 6-man dive against Slept On, so we knew we were better at it, so we just mirrored and won.
So then you saw them play 6-man dive, and then today they came out with Reinhardt Rush. Was that something that you guys were expecting, or was that something that you just adapted to on the fly?
we adapted to it. We pulled out the triple shotgun. They couldn't really do anything. Like there's too many angles for them to like stabilize.
So looking ahead to tomorrow's game, just checking the schedule, looks like you are playing Triumph tomorrow, who are currently not having a good run through Contenders trials. So my guess is you're not too worried about your final game in the series.
Maybe, but you know, always got to be ready.
That's
for
good. So
whatever.
you're not being complacent about it. That's good to hear.
Yeah.
So this is obviously this is a very difficult group to try and predict because it seems like everybody is very, very close at the minute. You've just with that performance put yourself in pretty good position to make it up to Contenders. How do you think your chances are, given that we still have games underway today?
I think the chances are pretty good. We're all pretty hyped up for it.
Okay.
We've bounced back from that Malibu loss, so I think it's just up from here.
And then you're definitely in a meta that really favors your team. I don't think I've seen a Roadhog quite as good or impactful as Soko for a very long time. But looking ahead to the future and the patch that's currently dropped, how do you think that's going to impact how the team plays?
Well, I don't know what the meta is going to be. We usually just you just play like a feel good comp. Like everyone just picks a hero they like to play. So mine was just Moira because I'm just like the best Moira in the world because I'm ginger. So I get like a buff, like a in-game buff.
I see. You get a +1 to Moira. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay, well, Archer, thank you very much for joining us. We'll let you go and rejoin your team and finish celebrating. But before we let you go, is there anybody you'd like to shout out? Any thanks you want to give on air?
I would like to shout out the team that warmed us up, Lord Grim, aka Victor, and shout out to Cabby Moss. My what's his name? He's on Magistatos or whatever on SA.
It's not the first time he's been thanked today, so he's clearly a popular guy.
He's a big influence on everybody.
Okay, well, we'll keep our eyes peeled for him. Archer, thank you very much one time for joining us.
Thank you.
No, it's fine. You go for it, my friend.
All right.
To everybody else, I'm afraid that is the end of today's broadcast, but there is still one more tantalizing, delicious day of Contenders NA Trials left to go, coming at you tomorrow. Moxie, before we close out the broadcast, anything you'd like to say to the nice people at home?
I mean, you heard it here first, folks. If you want to play Moira, either be ginger or dye your hair.
Okay, that's high-level strats coming at you from the Elo Hell casting team, but from myself and Moxie and everybody else here behind the scenes that makes this all work. Thank you for joining us, and we hope we'll see you again next time.